Dude, I love this idea that, like, dude, it sucks so bad to be Russian that we just gotta let them just make other people suffer as bad as them. We gotta feel so bad for how much it sucks to live in Russia. So this is an old debate. This is from like 11 months ago. This is much earlier in the war, which I think is also cool that we can go look at this debate that's almost a year old now, and a lot has happened since then. So maybe we can use this kind of, you know, all this information we've had after the debate to kind of like help us analyze it, help us like figure out what's going on here, and to see if there's anything that they predicted that maybe didn't come to pass. But I wanted to watch this because I was surprised I didn't watch this debate when it first happened between Sargon and Sitch, PSA Sitch. So I've been on the Adam and Sitch show before. I've enjoyed my appearances on there, even if we don't agree on everything. We do agree on Ukraine. That's something we agree on a lot, and I really enjoyed talking to them about Ukraine. I found them to be very attentive when we were talking about it, and I think most of the commentary on it has been pretty on point. And so I wanted to see Sargon go head-to-head with them on this issue, since I know Sargon believes we shouldn't be sending any aid to Ukraine, basically whatsoever. So I wanted to check out this debate, since, you know, Sargon is like from the skeptic era. He's one of those debate kings from back in the day. So I wanted to check out this debate to see how he did, and see how informed he is about the war. I'm very, 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 very curious. I heard this debate was also pretty good, so let's check it out.
We're the ones advancing on Russia.
No, we're not advancing. The world
of course
is changing.
we are. NATO has advanced on Russia.
The world is
This is a
changing,
fact.
and countries want to go in specific directions of their own choice. I know you don't care. You care so much about the thoughts and feelings of the Russian people, but you don't care at all about the sovereignty of all the countries that surround it. I can completely understand Putin, or even if it's true, the broader Russian perspective about what they want their place in the world to be. That doesn't mean I have to respect it or justify it morally.
Right.
Yeah, but that doesn't justify. Wait, that doesn't someone's suffering doesn't justify them becoming a monster.
They're not monsters. There we go.
Vladimir Putin
no,
is
you
a
say
monster.
Yourself, he's a fucking monster. No, he's the best leader Russia has had in over 100 years. America has no business in Ukraine.
Did he just say that Vladimir Putin is the best leader that Russia's had in 100 years? Oh my goodness, really? He's better than Khrushchev, better than, like, he's better than all the leaders who led the Soviet Union during its most prosperous times. And again, we're using the Soviet Union prosperity as a metric here, but better than all of them? The last 100 years. He's in the middle of a war that's been an absolute fucking disaster. Over a year of fighting, unable to achieve any of his objectives. All the objectives that he sought out to achieve with this war, stopping the expansion of NATO, seems like he's already failed on that. Sweden and Finland are banging on the door of NATO saying, please, please, please let me in, with only Erdogan stopping him. And it looks like Erdogan might be headed towards an election defeat. We see one of the goals was to stop the militarization of Ukraine. Ukraine's getting more weapons shipped into it than ever before. We're having Mitch McConnell saying on the Senate floor, saying in interviews, we want to send F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. We want to train Ukrainian soldiers in F-16. We have American supplied HIMARS tearing apart Russian logistics. The Russians have been pushed back from Kharkiv. They lost the battle for Kupiansk. They lost the Kharkiv counteroffensive. They've lost over 50% of the territory they've captured since February 24th. They lost Kherson, a city they annexed and said they would never leave. The most successful, the best leader of Russia in 100 years. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, we'll see in a second.
It's not a question of that. That's the wrong framing. Ukraine of its own choice.
It's a question to the Russians.
Ukraine of its own choice says we want to become
Ukraine's own
more.
choice.
You're saying America and the West should respect Russia, but when you say that, what you mean is by respecting Russia, we should let them do whatever the they want in their own sphere of influence and take over and fuck over anyone they want.
Russia did not invade, or it's not going to invade Ukraine if Ukraine has a pro-Russian leadership, right? There's no
and if they don't.
That's so backward. If you do everything we want, we won't have to beat the crap out of you. Yeah, can you imagine if that's how it works? It's like, well, you know, you don't like MS-13, but like if you do everything they say, they won't fillet you alive and like cut your throat and like leave you out in the street. Just do everything that the gangsters ask of you, and there won't be any problems.
Don't have a pro-Russian leadership, then they do.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay, so Ukraine basically is your position. Hey, how you doing, Sargon?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Good. What's up, man?
Oh man, it is fucking torture. You guys talk.
Okay, 1 second. I gotta see, what day was this? When was it? This is March 21st. So this is a month into the war. There's not even a month into the war. Okay.
Talk about this.
Is
it
it?
is genuine. Oh god, yeah.
Okay.
Holy shit.
Tell us.
I don't even know where to begin. Right. So on one hand, you're like, oh, the agreement was with the USSR and that's dissolved. So therefore, blah blah blah. And there are still no weapons in East Germany. But
wait. No, I literally never said that.
Listen. Right. You did say this, right?
No, I didn't.
And then yes, you did. And
well, do you want to do 1 point at a time, or do you want to do like your?
No, I'm going to lay out my position. Then you
okay, lay out your position.
And so you say, okay, fine. On paper, theoretically, in a thin sense, the USSR was what that was. No, that's legalistically. But then later on, you were like, oh, as if NATO's just going to disband because Russia isn't the same country. It's like, oh, there we go. Now, I agree with that. That's the real meat of the thing. That's the real way to look at it. But then you can't have it both ways. So if it was really Russia running the USSR, which it was, obviously, then the agreement with the USSR was really with Russia. And so the Russians suddenly look more justified in saying, well, hang on, you broke this agreement not to continue expanding NATO to a border. Right. And it's things like this. It's inconsistencies like this.
Can I just say, as far as I'm aware, and even Gorbachev himself said in reference to this, even though he kind of flip-flopped off on it, but he wouldn't be flip-flopping on it unless it was kind of clearly laid out. He even said that there was not a deal to stop NATO from expanding into states like Poland. And I believe Putin at one point even said, like, if Ukraine wants to join the EU, that's his business early in his presidency. As time went on and he centralized control, expanded his military, expanded his influence, cracked down on the Chechens, invade Georgia, then that position changed. But like Putin at one point was saying, like, I respect the sovereignty of Ukraine, basically, because he was trying to, like, either fake or purposely pursue, depending on your opinion, friendly relationship with the West, friendly relationship with the EU, possibly, depending on your position on Vladimir Putin, what you thought of his development at the time. I don't believe it at all. I don't believe he was ever really pursuing that, to be completely blunt. But there was no deal ever made saying NATO will not expand past Germany. That will never happen. The deal that was made with Gorbachev during the Soviet Union, which no longer exists, is that we would not put bases in East Germany. But then after the Soviet Union collapse, it only makes sense that all these states that used to be part of this one defensive agreement, which was the Warsaw Pact, would now want to join into a new defensive agreement to protect their sovereignty, to protect their statehood, to protect their borders. It makes sense that Poland would want to join this defensive agreement. And it's not like it was forced on them. They voluntarily joined. It wasn't like we came a gun to them and said, you must join NATO. No, they voluntarily joined. There are nations banging on the door of NATO, and they've been banging on the door of NATO to get in for years. And Gorbachev himself, like, he dismissed this idea that there was an agreement specifically saying that NATO will not expand any further past Germany. It had to do with military bases in East Germany. Interview with Gorbachev. Is this the one where he says this? I am against all wall. I don't want to go read the whole interview. I think there was one by the Atlantic Council that talks about this, but obviously not a lot of people are going to buy the Atlantic Council's talk about it, but I believe it was sourced well.
They basically belie the assumptions you guys approach this with.
Also, there is wiggle room for possibly this agreement to exist, but if it does exist, then it would only exist in this sense, that it was said verbally with no written commitment, nothing that was ever official. There's no written commitment. There's no record that Gorbachev or any historian can point to saying, here's the agreement that the US and everybody signed saying that NATO would never expand anymore. And it wouldn't make sense for the West to sign that anyway. it all exists in like rumor and in like possible verbal commitments, which I mean, like, you got to get these things in writing. If you look at the history of American-Chinese relations, it's a great example of why you need to get things in writing, and verbal commitments are not enough.
And I suppose the question I have to begin with then is Russia and the Russian state that is supported by the Russian people worthy of respect?
Wait, repeat the last thing you just said.
Is Russia, the state, and the people who uphold it worthy of respect? Okay. So regarding the NATO promise, you're talking about the promise to not move east thing, I assume, right? Yes.
Okay. So my position, I've heard this position. My position was not, that agreement was made with the USSR and the USSR doesn't exist anymore, so therefore we can throw it away. That was never my position. My position was what Gorbachev said himself, that the agreement was not about expanding NATO to encompass countries to the east, because at the time that the agreement was made, there were no countries to the east. All those countries were still part of the Soviet Union. Which
that's also another thing. It doesn't even make sense. And Sitch is already doing a good job here. It doesn't even make sense because like the Soviet Union still existed when this was negotiated. So would it make sense for the Soviet Union to say, "Hey, we're about to no longer exist. Could you not expand?" Because they were trying to hold on to their state. It would be a pretty bad look if the Soviet Union, while trying to keep their state together, was basically saying, "We're going to collapse. Please don't expand any further." That's another reason why it's so far-fetched. There's like no official record of it. We don't have any I think there's like one scribble somewhere off it, but nothing like in writing of like written commitments that this will be done or that'll be done. Gorbachev himself has said that's not what was being negotiated. It had to do with troops in East Germany and everything and negotiation. This would have been negotiated only verbally and only been committed to verbally, but we don't have any audio of it. We don't have any official record of it. It's just so flimsy. It just has always been so flimsy, but it's been one of the foundational bases for the Russian invasion of the country, but they have almost nothing to back it up.
Hadn't fallen yet. The agreement was only
Putin
about
said the same thing with Bush, didn't he?
The agreement was only about Gorbachev, who agreed to this and said it himself, was only about putting military bases in East Germany once the USSR pulled out of it. And he says himself that US and that NATO fulfilled their end of the bargain in that agreement. And I'm not 100% sure on this. I don't know if you're knowledgeable on this. I thought that until Russia invaded Crimea in 2014, that basically there wasn't really NATO forces even pushing into the countries that had been expanded to NATO.
No, as I understand it, military resources are being put into Poland, like missiles and things like this. But I'm no great expert. But Putin also did say to Bush, again, and Bush apparently looked him in the eye and promised him, right? And so you've got this continuity of broken promises from America.
By the way, can I just say, if the goal of the war was to stop the militarization of NATO states near Russia, that has been a massive failure. Because if you look at the amount of troops, American troops, in the country's bordering parts of areas near Russia, it has exploded since the start of this war. It has shot up drastically. The amount of love for NATO or commitment to NATO or dedication to stay in NATO and the amount of support for NATO has skyrocketed in Europe. I mean, this invasion was just such a failure on every level when it comes to what Russia wanted to achieve.
Yeah. Bush promised him what?
That he wouldn't expand NATO east.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that promise, but
okay, well, look it up. This is something Putin said. Now, I don't know, because and I again, this is why it's your framing on Russia that I can only assume comes from you being American.
Okay, I'm listening. Okay, Yankoid hatred we're about to hear. He said that Bush made a commitment not to expand NATO east. Okay, when was the commitment made, and what is he talking about specifically? Because I just looked this up. I looked up Bush promised not to expand NATO east, and the first thing is from the Brookings Institute, and it says, did NATO promise to not to enlarge? Gorbachev says no. I'm looking here. He said that Putin said it, which I don't think is the best source. because Putin says a lot of things. They also, the Russian state also said that there was going to be biological weapons that they were going to expose when they invaded Ukraine, and they found nothing. Even though they said they were going to target Russian DNA, they found nothing for it. So I don't know. He's got to be more specific. I think he's talking about HW, right? So I think he's talking about H.W. Bush. This is something Putin said, but I'm looking around and I can't find a single. I don't know. I thought he was talking maybe about the second Bush. Maybe he was talking about a second thing, but Gorbachev doesn't seem to agree with him.
Framing on Russia that I can only assume comes from you being American, right? Because of the Cold War and because of the way your politicians talk, right? It's insufferable, and it gives you this perspective on Russia that I think is honestly kind of unfair, right? I've never been to Russia. I only know like 2 Russians.
I've been to Russia.
Good for you. Right?
I'm of Russian descent, Sargon. It's in my blood.
I believe it.
What is that supposed to mean?
Why'd you bring it up?
Jeez.
I have no interest in Russia, right? I've never been on Russia Today. I don't care. The only time Russia ever enters into my daily life is when there's an American politician saying Russia hacked the elections, right? That's the only time until now, obviously. But the thing I really want to talk to you about is, again, does Russia deserve any respect?
No. Is there a follow-up question to that? I don't know. Like, what else need to say? Nation states don't just need like base levels of like, I'm a nation state, therefore you need to respect everything that I want, right? Therefore, anything that I want, you just need to respect it on a basic level and just give me what I want because it's what I want, right? Because like, I can respect Russia in the way that they have interests and we can listen to those interests and we can consider those interests, but I care more about Ukraine being a free state, a democracy, and having the future that they want, that type of self-determination, forwarding and advancing their country, integration with the European Union, which is going to help their state deal with the massive corruption issues that the Russian government wants to foment in Ukraine and helped foment in Ukraine in the first place. Like, I believe that's much more valuable than Russia's interest in having military bases in Ukrainian territory and propping up a corrupt oligarchy. They are clawing away at Ukraine in order to prop up a mandate that was lost in 2014, years ago. And they've been clawing and scratching ever since in order to try to reestablish that mandate, which they're never going to get back.
Is it a legitimate country? Do they have a right to exist?
Well, I mean, what do you mean by...
Does Russia have a right to exist? I don't know why acknowledging Russia has a right to exist necessarily comes with acknowledging their right to invade Ukraine.
Like, I don't think the country should be destroyed and the people killed. But I don't think,
however you interpret.
Yeah, but I don't think Putin should be respected in terms of. I don't think Putin's government is legitimate.
According to what standard?
I don't think that autocracies, where a dictator just seizes power and then just fucks over the rest of their country, is worthy of respect.
Yeah, but you said earlier that Putin didn't just seize power; he was granted it. He was passed it by Gorbachev.
Yeah. How did Gorbachev become leader?
Yeah, but what standard are you using?
The standard of believing in Western liberal democracy.
Right. Russia is Russia.
I know it. They don't believe in Western liberal democracy.
No. It's not that they don't believe in it. It's that if I were to characterize countries, right, in short, pithy phrases, right, I would say England is the Shire, right? I would say France is up its own arse with its own greatness. I'd say Germany is secretly a giant danger to the entire world, right? Okay. And the Germans know this.
As they always have been, yeah.
I would say America was probably God's chosen land.
Yes.
Right? You've been gifted all of the best of all things, right? And if I would characterize Russia, I would call it a land of suffering.
Okay, I would agree with all this.
Right.
Keep going.
Okay. So why judge them by the God-given standards of America? That's like saying a short person shit.
Dude, I love this idea that, like, dude, it sucks so bad to be Russian that we just gotta let them just make other people suffer as bad as them. We gotta feel so bad for how much it sucks to live in Russia when it comes to, like, using crocodile and like income inequality and authoritarianism and lack of civil liberties, that we just got to be like, damn, it sucks so bad to be Russian. You know how like when somebody suffers, there's this idea that like if you suffer with somebody else, it makes it easier to deal with, to know you have that shared experience. Maybe it's like that for being Russian. If they can spread being Russian to more countries, then they can share that suffering. How silly. How silly. How silly.
Moral
basketball because they can't
position
dunk.
Here, basically.
Right? No, it's true. Right? For the standards of Russia, Putin is not a terrible leader.
I'm not blaming
in living
the people,
memory.
Though. I'm
they've
not
had
saying
much,
that the Russian...
much worse leaders.
Of course, they were under fucking communists for
I know,
70 years.
But I mean, you've probably got some sort of 120-year-old babushka somewhere in Siberia who can remember the weak Tsar, right?
Right. I hope not.
You are acting as if Russia should land on its feet with English institutions like America did.
By the way, if there was any like credit you can give to Putin for like leading Russia well, which I wouldn't necessarily even give him that, all of that has been smashed by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The way that it has negatively impacted the economy. We see like an 80 to 90% reduction in car sales. We've seen 40% of Russian airliners grounded because they have to take parts of one plane and put them onto another plane because they can't import the parts anymore from overseas, even though Boeing is specifically saying you do not take parts off of one plane and put it on another plane to keep it running. That's not good. That's not safe. We've even seen some planes have some scary incidents that was really scary in Russia. We're seeing similar problems with trains. We're seeing millions of Russians flee the country either to get away from conscription or because their jobs left because all these Western companies have pulled out. And we're seeing all of the highly educated, well-trained, economically wealthy people, a lot of them was pulling out. I think it was like 20%. I think this is a Yale study from 6-7 months ago. So this number is only like increased since then. No, I think it was from 8 months ago. It was like 20% of the people in the country who had more than $30 million left. That's a crazy statistic. And that number's only increased since that Yale study was done 7-8 months ago. How much capital is flowing out of the country. I think half of its reserves that it had overseas was frozen. It's like there's so many problems that they're running into. And we're supposed to say this is like the best Russian leader in the last 100 years. I mean, what is the thing that Russia is gaining for all of these L's that they are taking? Right? How am I supposed to view this any differently from like the Russo-Japanese War? Right? Like, I don't know, man.
Right? It can't
what are you talking
happen.
about?
It can't be done.
Hold on.
They are
Sargon,
geographically hamstrung. They're historically hamstrung, right? And so you approaching it with this high and mighty, we're fucking better than you, and you're basically evil from our perspective, is to say that they are innately and intrinsically evil, and that can't change.
Us acknowledging that it is evil to invade Ukraine and fill up mass graves, the largest we've seen since the Yugoslav Civil War, is not saying that all Russians are intrinsically evil. If Sargon is making the argument that Russia can only exist as a nation state, constantly invading its neighbors and enforcing its will on its neighbors, because if we were to talk about all the nation states that Russia wants to basically control, we're talking about the entirety of the post-Soviet sphere. Every single nation that it borders, it wants to have control over in some way. We can see it from the Russians threatening invasion of Georgia because of the protests, and that's after they invaded in 2008. We saw Russian state media talking about possibly a denazification operation being needed in Afghanistan to liberate the Russian-speaking people there after Kazakhstan sent some medical aid over to Ukraine, sent some generators over to Ukraine, because while Kazakhstan's in Russia's military alliance structure. I mean, if we were to go by the books that are taught in the Russian military economy, like the foundation of geopolitics, Russia believes it has the rights to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, Moldova, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, like most of Central Asia, really, Georgia, of course, Chechnya, Armenia. I mean, there's so many countries that we're just like, sorry, man. The Russians get to choose what they do. They don't get any options. If Russia maybe played nicer with its neighbors, maybe they wouldn't have to go use force to get what they want. Maybe they could get it through beneficial trade or, making friendly relationships with them instead of threatening them with invasion.
Because they
I've
can't
never said
simply
that.
change their history.
That's a straw
Yeah, but
man.
this is your act. This is the way you approach them.
Okay.
No, stop. There is no such thing as a Russian government that is not autocratic.
So
you can always an autocrat. Yeah, duh. He's Russian.
I don't have any problem with the Russian people, okay, or the population. I'm not criticizing the Russian people. I'm not saying that they deserve, to be. I've seen people on social media saying, "Oh, like Russian people deserve to be killed for this," and blah 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 blah. I even had stream that a lot of people disagreed with. I think it was last Sunday or last Tuesday where I was saying that the individual Russian soldiers are not culpable for the decisions of their government, and I don't want to see them all get slaughtered the way some people are cheering for. Okay. I put the blame 100%.
If the Russian government, though, orders them to commit war crimes and they go do it, or they go commit the war crimes on their own, they are culpable for those actions, and they should be brought before a court for those actions, like what we saw in Bucha, like what we saw in Izium, or the other countless Ukrainian villages, towns, and cities that saw the worst that Russian atrocities have to offer. The Russians, as a military force, act less like a modern military force and more like a natural disaster in the country, if I'm being completely honest.
Solely on a single person in Russia.
Okay, but the blame isn't 100% on one person.
It's on Vladimir Putin's shoulders in the way that he's running his country, because
okay, well, it isn't just Vladimir Putin. It's all the people who enabled him and continue to make the war function, and the oligarchs that keep him in power. A lot of people are culpable. Obviously, when it comes to if we were to have a court case and who do we hold accountable directly, and who can we actually find guilty, that might be different. But the people who run the system and keep the system functioning, they're culpable as well.
Because since he is an autocrat, the decisions are all his decisions to make. The people didn't elect him.
There is no other way to run Russia at this point in time.
What'd you say?
There is no other way to run Russia.
So Sargon's saying there's no other way to run Russia but besides being an autocracy. I honestly, maybe I'm more of a libcuck than everyone else. If that's the case, that the only way Russia can exist is by constantly beating the crap out of its own people, then what's Russia's justification for existing in the first place if it can only exist by constantly terrifying its own population into submission? That's a really strong argument against the modern state of Russia existing as it is today, and it basically dissolving into states like Chechnya and other ones breaking off if the only way it can exist is by constantly beating its own people into submission and making them terrified to ever speak up against or criticize their government for any actions. I would expect somebody like Sargonofakkad, who cares about things like freedom of expression, right, to care about something like that, right? I don't know. It feels a little weird. Not to mention, I will also say that Russia could be running as a country right now while also not having invaded Ukraine. They could have just avoided that. Absolutely.
Change incrementally over time, Sargon, I'm curious. Or Carl. I'm trying to call you Carl now.
Whichever you prefer. I don't care.
And somebody just bring this up in chat right now, and I think this is pretty obvious, but there were many countries that never had a democracy and were just autocracies for the entirety of their history, or didn't have a history of democratic tradition, who then became a democracy later, right? It was usually not easy, but the idea that it's impossible to run Russia like a democracy, I don't know if I buy that.
But given the history of Russia, I'm not going to be optimistic about it.
So that might be true. I don't know if that's true or not, but even if I were to grant you that and say,
well, it's neither true nor false because it's indeterminate because we're talking about the future.
But I'm saying, right after the Soviet Union collapses, it would be, I agree, it would be silly to think that a country that's been an empire for thousands of years, that then transforms into a communist empire for 60, 70 years, is going to just magically become, a Western liberal democracy.
Right, but then why say, Putin's bad because he's an autocrat?
Well, hold on. Okay. And as someone brought up a good point, which is that the last 20 years of Russia has been the only time in Russia, in Russia's thousands-year history, that it hasn't been an empire. Okay, so I understand that there's all these pressures here, and I understand that it would be.
Well, I mean, that's debatable, depending if you talk to Chechens or not, but and Abkhazians and people. But moving aside,
be ridiculous to assume that Russia is going to become a magical Western liberal democracy. Okay, but there's a huge difference between me saying I understand why situations have turned out the way they are, and me justifying the way situations are.
Honestly, I think this is a position you're making up because you're being challenged on what you've said so far.
I've literally held this position.
No, I don't agree. I don't believe that you have. I think you might say that you do.
I've held the position that you can understand and empathize someone without justifying their position.
You make a bunch of other assumptions
since day one of this stream.
You make a bunch of other statements that completely betray that statement. Right?
Okay, so to be clear, you're saying you have no problem with what I just said, but you think I just said this now for the first time.
Oh no, I think you wish that you held that position, but you fall back into a position that is remarkably.
But what are you basing this on?
Right? This stream, frankly, and previous ones, the one with Spoon as well. My God, like
you just gave me the cultural relativism woke argument, so I don't know how to respond to this.
It is the problem that it is your culture and it is your unknowing.
My white European culture, yes.
Yeah, no, it is. It is kind of a privilege, right? And this is what I've always felt whenever I've dealt with Russians. Right? I've always felt that I was fucking lucky to be English and they were unlucky to be Russian.
Of course.
No, you say of course, right? But that you're glossing over just the depth of the suffering in that country.
If I went back in time and
okay, here's a question. Do you think the suffering in Russia was increased or decreased by sending tens of thousands to possibly hundreds of thousands by the time this is all over of their own young men to go to Ukraine to die, be injured, to be maimed, to direct their economy, which should be working on making modern infrastructure in large parts of Russia, which has been left underdeveloped after the collapse of the Soviet Union? Do you think that Russia's suffering has been lessened or worsened by them invading Ukraine? If the argument is that, oh my God, Russia's suffering, the existence of being Russian is to suffer, do you think it's better that they're worsening that by doing the invasion, or is that bad that they're worsening that by doing the invasion? I feel that's bad. I think that's bad for everyday Russians.
Every time I use the word Russia in this stream, I just said Putin, which I agree would be more appropriate. Would we be having this conversation?
You can't really separate Putin from Russia here, right? He is a product of that suffering too. Well, and the people who like him,
to some extent,
right?
He's a product of.
Also, like, again, I think I brought this up again, but I do want to hammer this point home. If the argument is that Russia is constantly in a state of suffering forever, every single secessionist movement in Russia is immediately like 100% justified, because that means that they will never, ever stop suffering until they leave this atrocity, which is to be Russian. If it is to be Russian, is only to suffer. Right? If we just boil it down to this, therefore, all the authoritarianism, the assassination of journalists, the lack of press freedoms, all of that is just immediately justified, because at the end of the day, Russia is suffering. Every single secessionist movement is 100% justified in its entirety. In its entirety. And not only that, if to be Russian is to suffer, then it's not that a bit much of a surprise that Ukrainians are fighting so hard against the Russians, because they don't want to be included in that fucking suffering. Like, if anything, this would only increase the justification for this war on the side of the Ukrainians, as in a defensive war, as in them defending themselves against the invasion, because they're trying to stop this wave of suffering. Why would they don't want to be included in the great Russian suffering experiment?
Not to some extent, 100%. He is a product of that fucking suffering, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't justify. Wait, that doesn't someone's suffering doesn't justify them becoming a monster.
They're not monsters. There we go.
Vladimir Putin is a monster.
Yourself. He's a fucking monster. No, he's the best leader Russia has had in over 100 years, right? He is not genociding.
Okay, can I just say, if Germany had Hitler, one after the other, and then they had, like, somebody who was a little less worse than Hitler, right? Would we say that person isn't a monster because he killed 2 million Jews instead of 6 million Jews, right? Obviously, what is it? I was supposed to say General Alden. What was it called? The not Occam's razor thing where everything comes back to Hitler, but just to drive my point home a little bit there. Like, I don't know. This feels pretty silly, and I gotta say, like, leading Russia into a war that has now dragged out and has led to all these deaths. And like the longer this war goes on, the idea that Putin's the best leader Russia's had in 100 years seems to decrease more and more and more and more and more, man.
No.
Okay.
But literally tens of millions.
That's a pretty low bar.
Wait,
Carl.
yeah, that's a very low bar.
For you, that's a low bar.
You're right. For me, of course. What are you talking about?
I think a lot of people would say that's a low bar.
But you could.
We're talking about Russia.
This sounds like, what's that guy's name? This sounds like Danny Fayong making bullshit rationalizations for the Uyghur genocide.
I don't care what it sounds like. This is
but you can make
reality
the
is
same.
like
Wait,
in Russia,
you can make the same argument, Sargon, on the same principle. Say, well, listen, Xi's really good for China. He's lifted all these people out of poverty.
No,
communist
he
China
is
doing the
engaged
best
in
for
a
China.
genocide.
It's ever fucking
He's
done.
actively engaged in a genocide, right? Look,
But why does that
Putin,
matter?
By our standards. What do you mean? Why does that matter?
But that's by our standards. What?
Yes, that is.
Us caring about the Uyghur genocide is liberal Western standards. Who
Let me
cares?
finish, right? But they're both bad by our standards, right?
Yes.
But by Chinese standards, Xi is not good either, right?
I don't know if that's true at all.
Of course, that's true.
I don't know if that's true.
Was it in the 50s that the communists took over? Again, it's with.
Also, should we really be judging ourselves by the standard of, well, it's always suffered? Like, what a terrible standard. Like, well, it's always sucked here. So, I mean, if it sucks, it just is what it is. It's just him being Russia. I mean, like, can't we say maybe that, Ukrainians want to improve their life? The whole reason that Euromaidan happened in the first place was because the Ukrainians wanted to improve their lives. They wanted visa-free access to Europe. They wanted to be able to go to Europe and work and send money back to their families to help get some cash flow into the country and good jobs for themselves. They wanted to be able to do more trade with Europe, have more economic prosperity. And they thought, because of the Budapest Memorandum with the Russians signed, which acknowledged Ukraine's territorial integrity, said Russia would never use economic coercion against them, said that they would never invade or question their territorial integrity. After they went to enter the association agreement, which Yanukovych, the pro-Russia leader, promised he would do on the 2012 campaign trail, Russia used economic coercion to bully him out of that. As the Ukrainians were trying to go towards a path that would allow them to have more prosperity as a society, the Russians have been trying to claw them back to establish the old mandate, to establish a mandate that was lost long ago. If what he is saying is true, and again, this is the last time I'll say it because I'm just repeating it over and over. If what he is saying is true, should we now just doom every country that borders Russia to share the suffering of the Russian state?
Within living memory that there were better options in China, man, right? But that you don't have that in Russia. In Russia, you just have worse and worse and worse the further back you go, right?
God, just one last thing. On just a basic human level, what a horrible thing to tell the Ukrainian people that the main goal of human beings, to improve the quality of living, to improve their life, to make their society better for their children than it was before. Every family wants to make it so that their kids are better off than how they were when they started. That's the goal of basically all families across the world. Basically telling Ukrainians, you cannot pursue that. You will just be doomed to suffering forever because that's just what it means to be Russian. Oh, you want to be Ukrainian? Well, we're just going to say that's fake anyway. You can't be Ukrainian. You have to be Russian. You have to suffer. You have to just like freeze to death or whatever. It's just a silly argument.
And this is not to say that Putin is a
the
good
communists
guy
could have
and we
lost
should
to the
support
more
him or anything like
liberals
that, which
during
is
the revolution.
what you said about me earlier. I fucking said, I just oppose what the media said. No, I know a lot more about this situation than you'd think. And I don't give a fuck what the media say.
Well,
okay. They're both wrong in both ways. Basically.
So
can we structure this to where you can lay out an argument? You guys are kind of talking over one another.
His argument is that we shouldn't be judging Putin from our privileged American standard. That is
not a monster.
Okay.
This is the thing. You are treating him like a monster, and he's actually not.
I think
it's hard. It's hard to think of a more legitimate kind of leader that Russia could have.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand?
Right? No, I don't, because both Gorbachev and Yeltsin were far more open. Even Medvedev, for fuck's sakes, was far more open to having positive relations with the West and moving towards a more Western system of things than Putin. I don't buy into this belief or frame that you're trying to set up that Putin is literally the only option that's available to Russia. That being an autocrat who sucks up all the country's resources, makes himself the richest person on the planet, and murders anyone who fucking opposes him is the only choice available to Russia.
No, that's just a Russian choice. You're going to get that no matter who you have in charge of Russia. That's what it's always been.
We didn't like how can Russia's just always going to be a shithole. That's what it sounds like to me, right? Russia's just always going to be, that's what it sounds like from Sargon's perspective. He's just saying Russia's a shithole. It's always going to be a shithole. It's going to be a shithole forever, led by horrible people. Just is what it is. Get used to it. And if they want to make other places shitholes, that's their business too. That's what it sounds like, man.
Have that with Gorbachev. We didn't have that with Yeltsin. We didn't have that with Medvedev.
Bollocks. I don't believe that for a second, right?
Okay. Well,
I don't believe that under the Soviet Union, they weren't killing dissidents or anything like that, right? Because one of the things the Soviets are really good is just not talking about it.
They were moving towards trying to become a more Western liberal democracy, or at least have more positive relations with the West.
And it would be
Putin is going in the exact opposite direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine that's probably something to do with America's positioning on this.
It's because he doesn't want to get Gaddafi.
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems reasonable, doesn't it?
That seems reasonable for him. That's not the moral position to have for the betterment of your country.
The moral position is that Putin gets Gaddafi'd, is it?
I never said that. Don't.
You just did.
Don't Kathy Newman me.
You just did.
No,
right?
I said.
So
it's
reasonable.
Do you think
for anyone to say that Putin shouldn't be Gaddafi?
That one soccer meme, like, I should not speak. If I speak, I get in trouble. Big trouble. Big trouble.
Right? Because what happened to Gaddafi, whether you like Gaddafi or not, wasn't nice, was it?
No, of course not.
Right.
What
so we
I
don't want
said,
Gaddafiisms.
What I said was that a leader of a country doing everything in their power, including sacrificing the well-being of their own country or their surrounding countries, just to shore up their power, is not the.
Somebody just asked me a question in chat. It's actually a good question. Dylan, do you believe when Putin said that those who wish for the return of the USSR have no brain, he was being disingenuous, or he's changed his position on ex-Soviet states returning to the empire? I think what that meant was not those who wish for Russia to be a dominant, powerful geopolitical force that has immense influence or control of its neighboring states or develops like an empire, right? I don't think that's what he was getting across. I think he was more getting across like those who wish for the return of communism have no brain. That's what those who wish to turn to the past and recreate it. Obviously, we have to move on to the future while looking back to the past. But the Soviet Union, the communist state, that can no longer exist. I don't think he was saying that we can no longer build empires. That's what I don't think he was saying. I mean, unless the quote, I mean, that's what it reads to me. Unless somebody has a longer version of the quote that says something else. That's what it feels like when I hear it.
Morally ethical position to take.
It is to shore up Russia's power.
It's not. It's a short Putin's power.
Is,
that's the big
because
difference.
You're treating Russia as if it has no legitimacy.
I'm treating Putin as if he has no legitimacy.
There is no distinction here between Putin and Russia.
Well, I guess that's the disagreement that we have, because I think there is a difference, or there could be a difference.
I mean, hypothetically, there could be, but in real life, there's not. You know, like saying that Putin is a populist. Yeah, he's a populist. Like, didn't you not see him go out in a stadium, Trump style, and give a "Russia's so great, let's wave our Russian flag" speech? He's the total populist, right?
But he would arrest anyone that came into that stadium that protested against him. How can you say that's populism?
Because Russian nationalism is a...
Okay, I don't understand what Adam's point there. You can be an authoritarian and a populist. In fact, many authoritarians are populists. You can do things that are populist and extremely authoritarian. I don't think populism necessarily means that you support civil liberties or you're for freedom of expression, right? If you're like a populist in let's say you're in an extremely religious country, it might be the populist thing to do to be like, no gays. Gays bad. Like that might be the populist thing to do, or could be considered a populist move. There are many populist leaders. For example, Huey Long, massive populist, also pretty authoritarian.
A different beast to American nationalism.
Of course.
You say of course, but
of course.
But Adam just asked, well, how he arrests bad people, the people are opposing. Yeah, of course he does.
Well, he's talking about in terms of using the populist label, but not the nationalist label.
It doesn't mean he's not a populist, right? And he's just a Russian. And again, it's cultural misunderstanding.
No. But it's just about because the populism is usually like this. Oh, we're anti-elites, and if you literally have oligarchs who are the elites, it seems, and he's the master elite. It seems strange to categorize him as a populist who's against the elites.
Yeah, if any populist showed up in that auditorium and protested against the elites, what would happen to those people?
Yeah.
I'm not sure the people who'd be protesting would be considered to be populists, frankly. I think they'd be liberals.
Well, there are people in Russia that are protesting the war. They're getting arrested. Those aren't the populists?
Yeah, of course. No.
For example, like I understand the idea of versus the elites, but the thing is, when you listen to Viktor Orban, when he talks about the elites, for him the elites is George Soros. He'll just like, I'm not the elites. He is an elite, right? But he's just saying they're the enemy elite. I'm a good guy, but they're the enemy elite, you know? I mean, Trump does this all the time. I'm one of the good billionaire rich guys who, you know, dodged taxes and didn't really follow the law and lived as I wanted to because I was super rich and was raised with a silver spoon in my mouth. But those elites over there, like, listen to his rhetoric. Like, he is an elitist. He is part of the elite while condemning the elites and using them for his populist rhetoric. You can be a member of the elite while also being a populist. Viktor Orban is a great example of this.
Okay.
The populists are the people who live, they're the people in the cities, right? They're the liberal elites who live in the cities. And the populists are the ones who live out in the hinterlands and think, Mother Russia, great.
I think
you're beaten by the Americans. We need to expand ourselves to gain our self-respect.
Well, I guess you could look at that framework only if you're going to broaden populism to outside of the individual country, to looking at it in some sort of like global elite stage. That's the only way you could frame the argument you're making.
The Russians see themselves as a people, and they see themselves as a people acting on the world stage.
I understand
as far as
look, I also want to say, like, most of the arguments that he is making, when it's like the idea that the people want to invade, like, because they need to expand their empire, because they need to make themselves more influential, you could use this to like justify any like invasion, to conquer and conquest of any country ever, right? I don't think he's making an argument here to justify it, but just saying like that viewpoint that a Russian person could have is totally messed up, wrong, and it should be fought against, right? If Emmanuel Macron said tomorrow, Belgium, more like Elgium, and then invaded, right? That would be bad, no matter how many justifications he made about like, they're actually really French and we must expand the influence of the French and Napoleon did nothing wrong. Like that would be bad.
As many of them are concerned, Putin is an effective leader.
Okay.
Do you think they would have that same perspective if they had access to global media?
I don't know. Probably.
So, under your framework that you're laying out, is Putin, like, is there a level at which Putin stops becoming justified, depending on?
No,
okay.
Of course there are, but of course, you know, like, I'm not trying to say that Putin is good, right? I'm trying to say he's Russian.
You're saying he's the best Russia can accomplish. You have like super low expectations, basically.
Like, yes. Oh God, yes, exactly.
Bigotry of low expectations.
You need to have super low expectations.
Oh my God. I think here's another thing. If what he is saying is true, is that this is the best Russia can do is invading and flattening Chechnya, invading and displacing hundreds of thousands of Georgians before threatening to invade Georgia again once they have protests that at all don't align with their interests, and invading Ukraine, fighting them for 8-9 years before doing another invasion of Ukraine. If this is the best version of Russia possible, the best version of the Russian government, then NATO as a force has to expand, has to exist, has to defend the states all around Russia's border, because then it's inevitable that they're going to try to invade these states without NATO protection. Because the states that Russia didn't invade, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, which would really be the easiest states to invade considering their military size and considering that the justifications that Putin used to invade Ukraine, the idea that it was an artificial state created by Lenin and that these are post-Soviet states and we gave them freedom, we have a right to take that freedom away. That same justification could easily be used for Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and these are countries with much less defenses on their own. Without NATO membership, he might have invaded them instead. In fact, they probably would have. So if anything, if what he is saying is true, that this is the best Russia can do, like right here, Putin is the best Russia can be, then NATO's existence, then NATO has to exist. And NATO had to expand into Poland, or it would have been inevitable that they would have just rolled back to where they were before.
elections, right?
But why the fuck should I? But you could be, even if that's all true, why the fuck should that affect my moral weight on the situation? Why should that affect my moral opinion on the situation?
Because your moral opinion is unrealistic.
It doesn't matter. The world has to interact. You and me and everyone that lives in the world has to interact with terrible people who are almost always terrible for reasons that they're not in their control, because their brains fucked up or horrible shit happened to them. That doesn't mean it justifies what they're doing, and we just say, well, that's the roll of the dice. That's the best they could accomplish.
Yeah, but what you're saying then is that the Russians should act like an English-speaking liberal democracy.
I never said anything about what the Russian population should be doing in this situation.
What? Tell me what you're saying then.
I'll say what they should be doing. They should be protesting against the war before they're all set into the fucking meat grinder. That's what I think they should be doing.
I'm saying Putin is not fucking justified in invading Ukraine.
You told everyone how he was justified earlier, because if he loses all of his allies and then he gets overthrown, he gets Gaddafi'd. Right, and
so from Putin's perspective, morally justified under my moral framework,
under your absolute liberal framework. Fine.
Yes.
Okay. Stop comparing Russia to that, because it's not a liberal democracy.
So should every conversation that's ever had in the entire world
every
drop down into this insane cultural relativistic argument where we say, listen, why should poor people and why should anyone in America have to live up to American standards of being on time and going to work? I mean, why don't they just have their own cultural values, right? I mean, that's the white people values. Why can't non-white people have their own fucking cultural values that they can do and they can prosper in? Like, this is
I'd say because they're American.
Woke bullshit argument that we've been fighting this channel for like 3 fucking years.
Sitch, this isn't woke bullshit.
It is woke bullshit.
No, this is political realism, because this is why Russia is doing all of
it. Henry fucking Carl Kissinger over here, man. Here it is, Carl Kissinger coming out, man.
It's because of
Carl would be grabbing Mao's hand, raising it with Nixon, man.
Lack of respect for
That's
their
not a normative
civilization,
fucking claim.
Right? That's why they're doing this. They feel like America doesn't respect their civilization.
Carl, you're not a moral relativist. I've heard you say many times that you believe Western civilization has a greater culture, a better culture.
Yes, of course. You
debated Quackademic Agent on this, and you destroyed him.
And I know, because exactly. Oh my God, exactly. Which is why I wish you'd fucking listen to me, right?
Yeah, but you're taking an opposite position that you took in that debate. You're basically taking a moral relativist position. You're saying, listen, we have these values and we can't.
Position on this.
We have to accept their values. Well, no, we don't have to accept their values. We can say, listen, your values fucking suck. Oppressing your people and stifling
their values.
Stifling debate through the boot and like choosing who I compete against. No, I do
have to understand them. No, you don't.
We've explained that. Well, I think we've explained their values pretty clearly.
No, you don't.
You said
I
did. You said I understood Putin's fear. I understand it completely.
Yeah, but you don't understand why he
doesn't want to get Gaddafi. We're all in agreement.
No,
right?
It's not just that. Right? It's not just that. Of course, Putin doesn't want to get Gaddafi, but the Russians see themselves as the inheritors of a great civilization. And the Americans don't respect them.
Also, can I just say, if you don't want to get Gaddafi'd, don't invade your neighboring countries. Like, for example, Idi Amin, right? He didn't get Gaddafi because he fled after he invaded the country, and it didn't end up working, and his country started collapsing, and he fled, converted to Islam, and it was like a Muslim in the Middle East until he died, the day he died. You don't want to get Gaddafi'd. Don't start invading all your neighboring countries and threatening to blow up the world with nuclear weapons. It's like, just a hint.
At all. In fact, they demonize them on a daily basis.
Who has stood in the way of Russia achieving the cultural power that they once had historically? Who is standing in the way of that?
Well, right now?
Yes.
Well, the United States and NATO, obviously.
Putin is the one standing in the way of that. Putin has stifled innovation in Russia for the last 20 years.
That's not their concern.
They're not a free and fair society.
That's your concern. That's an American concern.
Well, that's how you're going to move up in the world culture.
Yes.
That's an American view.
Well, that's not a Russian. That's reality.
It's a Western values view.
It's one way of interpreting the world.
I mean, well, so how is Russia
So weird to know, like, because I think back in the day, I used to watch Sargon videos, like probably 2017, 2016, probably before Trump was elected. I used to like listen to his commentary, and something that was really important to him was like, all cultures are not equal. I hate cultural relativism because that's stupid, because some things are just better than other things. And then like, well, the Russian view is this, and this is the American view. Like, can he just say, does he prefer liberal democracy or authoritarian dictatorship? That's what I would want to hear from Carl here. Like, what is the better system of governance in his mind? Like, what is better for running countries? What has what has produced more successful countries? Authoritarian system of governance built upon oligarchical control, centralized oligarchs supporting a strong man at the head of the state. Has that produced more successful countries, or liberal democracies? On average, what has produced more successful countries when it comes to rates of corruption, when it comes to living standards, when it comes to GDP growth, when it comes to like any metric of success, anything? I mean, even like the one thing that authoritarians are supposed to be good at, invading other countries, they can't even do well here. So I'm just like, so like, what's the metric of success then for Sargon?
Russia going to move up in the world otherwise by conquering its neighbors again? Are we going back to
that's
that
the
value
way
system?
they've done it for the last 1,000 years. Yeah.
Okay. So if that's their position, why should I respect that? I can understand
Right. So
that,
we've
but
got
why
to the
should I
point where you
respect
finally
it?
admit that you don't respect Russia.
Why should
I
we,
don't
though?
respect the hypothetical
Right.
you're
You don't
laying out.
respect
I don't
Russia.
know if
That's
it's
fine.
actually true
Just
or not.
admit what you are.
We don't we don't
you're
respect.
saying,
Listen,
right?
we don't
No.
respect autocrats. I mean, that's,
Sargon, you're not the
God.
voice of Russia. Okay, I'm engaging with the argument.
I am in this conversation
No,
because you're not going to understand them either.
Okay, if someone was to ask me like, okay, so Germany's like saying that they need all this Sudetenland, or they need, they need all this living space, like, and like, whether you like it or not, like, if you ask the average German, they would agree with Hitler. And so like, do you not respect Germany? Just say it. Just say you don't respect Germany. Okay, I don't respect that thing that Germany wants. I respect Germany's right to exist. I don't respect that demand. I do not expect their claim to Sudetenland. I do not respect their claim to Alsace-Lorraine. I don't respect their claim to all this territory that they're claiming. I don't respect their invasion of their neighbors. Like, I don't respect any of that at all. And if you don't consider that not respecting Germany, then I did not respect Germany between 1933 and 1945. Like, so, I mean, I can respect a country and its history and its people without respecting what its government does or the actions that the state takes.
I don't believe that you have the psychic connection to understand the collective unconsciousness of Russia.
Okay, but then
I'm
you're an
engaging
American,
with
and everyone
you
thinks Americans
and
are
your
fucking ignorant for a reason.
opinions. Okay.
Right.
one
Literally,
at a time, guys. Let's just have a nice
everyone thinks Americans
conversation.
are
here.
ignorant for a reason, right? And this conversation shows it, right?
Oh, no, don't go down this.
Obviously,
Don't go down the spoon
right?
route. Come on, Carl. Let's be friends
Yeah, but
here.
he's right and you're wrong, right? You have to
Spoon?
understand. Like it's the worst. It's the most cringe thing in the world.
You haven't.
You guys,
If
when
we
you
were-
guys talk about liberal
You
democracy,
haven't. You keep making the same point, and then you don't explain anything.
what would you like? Me to
Why-
do? What don't you understand?
I can completely understand Putin, or even if it's true, the broader Russian perspective about what they want their place in the world to be. That doesn't mean I have to respect it or justify it morally.
Right. So
These are
you
two
don't respect
completely
Russia.
different things.
Yeah, totally.
You don't respect Russia.
I
That's
don't
what you're saying.
respect your position of what you're claiming Russia's position is.
But that's
And if
what they say.
If
They
that's
just
Russia's
explicitly
position,
say it.
Well, one
if
at a
it'll
time.
make
One
you
at a
feel
time.
better,
Just one at a
if it'll
time.
make you
guys.
feel better for this conversation. If that's Russia's position, then no, I don't respect it. Okay.
Right. Okay. So you want to see Russia crushed.
I want to see them adopt a
Crushed.
system that doesn't destroy.
Dude, what is this? Dude, hey, Russia, please don't invade and conquer your neighbors. Why are you so mean to Russia? You just want to see Russia die. You're just so... I can feel the Russophobia flowing throughout you. What is this framing, man? Come on, this is so weak.
Doesn't fuck over
You
everyone
want-
around them.
That's you've got to understand they're not going to agree to what you're saying.
Define crushed.
You don't.
Well, you tell
don't think
me.
anyone can change? You don't think any country can change?
Things change all the time, Sitch.
Okay, then why are you saying this? You have this
Because they
fatalistic argument.
change in line with the existing position that they're in line with the
Why
operating
did
and animating
Japan
principles
become
of
a
the
Western
culture.
democracy after
Because they
becoming
got
an
nu-
empire for
That's why.
thousands of years?
They got nuked. That's why.
Okay, is that the only reason you think?
Yeah, that's absolutely the reason.
Okay.
complete nuked, complete and total surrender. That's the reason, right? The Russians didn't get that treatment. They got the slow decline and collapse, right? So the Russians are currently in a state of humiliation, like the Chinese were.
Yeah, they are.
Like this,
totally.
Yeah, exactly, right? And Sitch is saying they don't deserve respect.
Do you know what the Chinese did though to fix their situation
or not? Do they deserve respect or not? And the answer is no.
Why do you keep trying to frame it this way?
Because that's what they care about.
Do you? No, what do you base respect on, Sargon? Merit, or do you base respect on
consideration for their position?
What if their position sucks?
Let's have that.
Wait, what if their position sucks?
Yeah, I agree. Their position sucks, right? Their position absolutely sucks.
So why should I respect that position if it sucks?
Because they're stuck with it.
So just out of sympathy, out of sorrow for them?
Your options then are to deal with them in a respectful way or crush them. So which one would you like?
If the options is we let Russia invade its neighbors and just basically domineer like all of its bordering territories. By the way, if we were to do the mental math on all of the countries that Russia believes that it has basically the right to control, that the population that would be added to Russia in this dream scenario would be larger than the actual population of Russia. They do not just have a right to all of that territory. And so in my position is we don't need to go into like Moscow and capture Moscow in order to stop this. We can just stop them when they invade, which we are doing right now without a single American casualty, not a single NATO military casualty. We can give Ukraine the weapons necessary to defend itself, and after Russia gets a bloody nose and gets out of the country, they'll hopefully reconsider doing that again in the future. And if they do it again, then we'll be there to help the people who they invaded again. We should not just say, because apparently Sargon says that Russia has basically accepted itself into the cult of suffering, right? They're just every Russian in the street just like taking their lashes like, to live is to suffer, to live is to suffer, to live is to suffer. We shouldn't doom another 180 million people to that existence. Of course, I disagree with the framing, but if I was to agree with the framing, that only gives me more of a reason why to stop the expansion of Russia into territories that don't want to be part of Russia.
Our options are to either respect the shitty position or crush them.
Can we step back for a second, because
this is important.
Well, no,
there's no. So you're on the cusp of an understanding here, right?
Well, I don't feel like any level of respect would change the situation, though. You've set up this criteria where respect of Putin would have made him not invade his next door neighbor, and I just fundamentally disagree with that. That's you can give them all the respect in the world.
Right? You're not treating Russia as if they're a great power, whereas the Russians view themselves as a great power. Mm-hmm. What do you mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you are not respecting Russia as a great power. This was inevitable that they would start.
I mean, considering their performance in the war, it's not that crazy that people don't respect Russia too much as a great power outside of the fact that they have world-ending weapons, right? Come on.
Lashing out because of that. This is just diplomacy 101.
Right. No,
you are doing nothing to negotiate or compromise with the Russians, right? You're demanding everything on America's terms in language that the Russians probably don't even really comprehend, frankly, to standards to which they could never.
Fuck off. They comprehend the language.
Really adhere.
That is not true.
It's really easy to get this message across. Leave, okay? Bye, go, get out of here. That's not really lost in translation.
That's exactly what you've done.
No, NATO and America has been trying, especially Obama. No, Obama had an entire thing for 4 years when Putin wasn't president to try to reset America-Russian relations. And they bent over backwards, and every Republican in this country called Obama a fucking apology tour through Europe, apology tour towards Russia. He was bending over to Russia. Fucking Mitt Romney was criticizing for this. Everyone was. Mm-hmm. And the second Putin went back in the office, he went back on all the progress they made and said, fuck you, America. Okay. Yeah, so this idea that America's just sitting here spitting in Russia's eye is not true.
I don't agree. I think that America has spat in Russia's eye, right? And I don't blame America for doing it, right? I don't blame America.
No, but I'm saying you're laying out a framework where you're saying America and NATO is just punching Russia in the face, and that's not accurate. Russia,
I don't.
America and NATO
I think that's a totally
overtures time
spitting in that
time
one at a time,
again.
guys. Come on.
Russia and America and NATO has made overtures time and time again, and Vladimir Putin is not. Him personally, he's not having it because he hates the West and everything they stand for.
On terms that I don't agree that he hates the West and everything they stand for.
He's been pretty vocal about it, but
I think that this is about the terms, right? Because America is, again, like when I said conquering the world in self-defense, like I don't understand how you can rationalize NATO literally getting to Ukraine, being like, right, we're going to try and fast track Ukraine into NATO.
They did,
and for the Russians not to see that.
They did the opposite of that. Though. That didn't happen.
Oh, right. So they didn't have the fast track thing. Like
they didn't. They literally did the opposite of that.
But George Bush wanted to put him on that, right?
Yeah, George Bush did, and NATO said no.
Right.
George Bush is a fucking neocon crazy person. I'm not going to defend.
But why
George
is
Bush's
America
person.
trying to get the buffer states at Russia's border into NATO?
I love that. Like Ukraine just reduced the buffer state status. They just reduced the buffer state status. By the way, Russia doesn't want Ukraine as a buffer state. To be clear, just listen to the Russians. It's not, oh, we just want them as a buffer state. They say that Ukraine can only exist as a pro-Russian state. The purpose of the invasion was not just to guarantee Ukrainian neutrality. It was to make Ukraine a pro-Russian state. It was to install a pro-Russian government. When the Russians used economic coercion in 2014 to make Yanukovych pull out of the association agreement, it was to make him instead join the Eurasian Economic Union with the Russians. They were trying to make it, with Yanukovych, a pro-Russian state. Not just some neutral state, but a pro-Russian state. That's their ultimate goal, because their ultimate goal isn't even Ukraine. They had said that they don't even recognize Ukraine really as a country anymore. It's basically just an extension of Russia. The Russian government's been very open about this. They're not the end goal. It is the entirety of the post-Soviet sphere. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, that's part of the goal. And if you look at how the negotiations Russia was trying to engage in before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, they were trying to get the Americans to drop nuclear protections for basically the entirety of the post-Soviet sphere. They're trying to make moves on that. So the idea that it was just going to be a buffer state, they wanted to erase Ukraine as the idea of a neutral state. They believe it could only exist as a pro-Russian state. They say they want it as a neutral state, but then they're trying to force it to enter the Eurasian Economic Union. And they don't want Ukraine as a neutral state. They want Ukraine as a pro-Russian state. They believe it can only exist as a pro-Russian state. So it's not even a buffer state. They want it to exist as a pro-Russian state. I mean, if it's a buffer state, then how the hell can the Russians justify having military bases in Crimea? If Ukraine is a buffer state, then there would be no Russian military bases in Crimea internationally recognized as Ukrainian territory. Doesn't sound like a buffer state to me.
We want to
talking about George. Why did George Bush want Ukraine in NATO? Or are you talking about why does the general whole? Because these are different
George
things
as well. Because
George Bush. I mean, George Bush has he has the we're going to build liberal democracies, liberal hegemony across the world.
That's what he'll say. But remember, NATO from the Russian position is basically the American empire, right?
But that's a stupid position to have.
Okay, brilliant. Welcome to Russia. Right?
Okay.
They see NATO as an existential threat because it was formed to be an existential threat against Russia.
Well, it was formed to be a defense against the threat of Russia trying to take over the rest of fucking Europe, basically.
Right. And now NATO's taking over Europe.
They're not taking.
How are the Russians going to look at that? Right.
The Russian army would march in and say, okay, you're going to be communist now. Or the Soviets, I guess, back in those days. Okay. And NATO, basically countries say, NATO, can we please join you? And they say, well, you got to reform your country. And they say, okay. And then they get to join NATO.
You said earlier, there is no neutral position. Right. And I agree that being a liberal democracy with all the money that America is going to provide definitely is a preferable option. Right. But this is us speaking from our biases.
Of course.
This is not us respecting the Russian position. And it's okay if you don't respect Russia. You can just say it, right? I don't really respect Russia.
One second, right? Sargon. Can we separate? Because there seems to be two different debates going on here. One is over this respect, diplomacy types thing, which I'm not convinced that even if we had perfect diplomacy and showed utmost respect for Russia, things would be any different. And then there is the motivation of Putin to stay in power and protect his legacy. So which you keep pivoting back to the respect thing, as if America just respected more, things would be different. But that doesn't change anything on the side of the equation with the Putin.
To be clear, if NATO didn't expand 1 inch, I just think the Russians probably would have invaded sooner. I just think they would have invaded like states like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania sooner if they did not cede to Russian interests, if they did not give the Russians what they wanted. And it would just mean they wouldn't have no means to defend themselves. Like the idea that if NATO just stood where it was and didn't do anything, or it would dissolve afterwards, the Russians would, an authoritarian Putin-style Russian government would not pursue making another empire is absolutely ridiculous.
Staying in power, avoiding
it really like frames Russia as like, we're only doing this because of NATO, as if they don't have any personal greed reasons. They don't want to build an empire because it's beneficial for their state and enriching themselves and trying to increase their power. Like there's a million motivations for them wanting to build an empire, just like that, like reasons why anybody wants an empire, so they can have bases around the world, so they can have access to resources, so they can exploit these nations, so they can force their will upon others. Like the idea that like if NATO wasn't there, that like Russia would just be like, what empire? I don't want an empire. I only wanted an empire because NATO. Oh, we wouldn't have invaded Chechnya. We wouldn't have invaded Georgia. Like, get out of here. Come on. They would have still done wars. In fact, there's a decent possibility that other states that weren't invaded, like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, would have been.
Being Gaddafi, respect has nothing to do with that. Diplomacy has nothing to do with that. So I'm curious on which.
Again, The Foundation for Geopolitics. This is a book that is mandatory reading in the Russian military academy. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, Kazakhstan. In the first edition, they even said parts of China, Ukraine, Moldova, Romania. These are all states that just belong to Russia. It's just theirs. They do whatever they want. In fact, annex most of them. It's crazy stuff, man. Mongolia, man. So many states.
Do you agree with us on the staying in power side of the equation? Do you agree that Putin is in a game where he's trying to stay in power, and ultimately a lot of his decision making is impacted by that game?
Yeah, I mean, Russia is basically a mafia state, right?
Okay, so you agree with us on that stuff then. So then, just the do you agree? Do you agree with us?
Hang on, right? I've spoken to, and I've watched lots of Russians talking about this until, of course, the Iron Curtain of the West came down and we can't get their media anymore. And like someone like Konstantin Kisin from Trigonometry, right? He's Russian, right? He's a very pro-Western
I watched his talk, yeah.
Right. He does not think Putin is in any danger of being overthrown. Does he know more about that than us?
Probably not. I mean,
probably not.
Is he an ex-KGB member or something? I don't know.
Well, I mean, he's a Russian. Yeah, but he's got friends and family in Russia. He speaks to them on a daily basis. Like they give him the barometer of what popular opinion in their areas are and whatnot.
I mean, of course,
he thinks that Putin is generally quite popular with the people.
I live in America, and I'm not sure. I have a $500 bet on whether or not Trump is going to run for president. Like, I don't have any inside information. But
he's obviously going to run. But the point is, I don't think Putin's position in Russia is in danger, right? Okay. He's been doing this for what, 30 years? Like he's manipulated the networks entirely to his favor. He's a very clever man, if nothing else, right? He's a ruthless,
I guess he just wanted the challenge. He just felt like endangering his position in Russia, man. My goodness.
I mean, on a personal level, I consider him evil, right? But on the level of what a Russian autocrat should be to be an effective autocrat of Russia, he is a very effective autocrat, and he has advanced Russia's position in the face of America's provocations, and they are provocative. And I'm sick of this narrative that America did nothing wrong here, NATO did nothing wrong. No, I think there has been, if you consider that the Russians deserve at least a modicum of respect, right, for their position and their history.
To be clear, when you say they're a modicum of respect, do we do this for other countries that well, at the end of the day, China's China, so if they want South Korea, that's their business. I mean, China's so big, if they want Japan, that's their business. And if they want Vietnam, I mean, at the end of the day, that's their business. If they want India, that's their business. You know, I mean, Taiwan, there's the business. You know, it's their business. It's right there. It's their business. I mean, we got to respect China. You know, we got to respect China. Should the whole world have just been like, look, America's gigantic. If they want to invade Vietnam, that's their business. You know, if that's what they want to do, at the end of the day, it's America's business, right? I mean, imagine if the response to like somebody saying, what the fuck? America's invading Iraq. What a terrible idea. Sorry, America's a very powerful. It is the unipolar world order, man. It is the most powerful country on the planet. You got to respect that. It just is what it is. We're realist hours. This is why I hate realism. This is why I despise realism. Is because it's devoid of any values. It's devoid of any morality. It does not seek building an international order that could maybe like bring humanity forward and hopefully try to decrease the amount of conflict in the world. It's just completely devoid of any value. It's devoid of any morality. It's how people like Henry Kissinger are created, man. Carl Benjamin just sounds like Henry Kissinger. He just word for word Henry Kissinger. That's what it sounds like right now. And
the culture and the people. Right?
He's increased there.
Wait, this is the primary issue.
Stickman, thank you so much for the gifted. And it's so aggravating because Carl has always like been one of the people who talks about like the superiority of this over this. So it's so weird to just be like, not just putting all that to the side. At the end of the day, we just have to respect the position because they're Russian. That's the end of the day. So it is what it is. You know, it is what it is.
Here.
Yeah, not to mention, like he's also talking about Russia as if like Russia's like this all powerful state that we have to respect because it just is what it is. When the Ukrainians are winning battles, they won the Kharkiv counteroffensive, they won the Kherson counteroffensive, right? Obviously, this was before that, so maybe he didn't realize just how, you know, out of shape the Russian military is. But this is still a month into the war. The Russians were already running into problems, right? So if the Russians can't even like run a military force that can take over Ukraine, why should we just respect that power? It seems like the power isn't there to respect in the first place.
Why does us or NATO or US, quote unquote, respecting the legacy of the Russian Empire supersede all the people who live in the surrounding countries who want to be part of NATO?
Well, I mean, I'd say because otherwise it's going to be war with Russia.
Okay, so is the only argument
what does that mean? There's a war. If Russia does not respect their sovereignty and invades them, then there's already a war, right? Whether we intervene or not, there's already a war. Ukraine would be fighting the war with or without us, right? They'd be probably fighting it worse without us. Russia would still be running into a ton of issues. I don't think they would have taken Kiev, but they'd be running into a lot more issues. There's already going to be a war, and we're not at war with Russia. This has been going on for over a year, and our weapons have been having a mighty impact on the conflict. So I don't even think that's necessarily true. People have you know, we have supported movements like the Mujahideen, for example, without having directly have to go out and fight the Russians. And the Russians were supportive of the Viet Cong, and they didn't have to directly fight us in Afghanistan. I mean, you know, it is possible to avoid war in these scenarios. Direct war, that is.
Is a purely physical, the consequences of this is that it could lead to a World War III argument.
No.
Okay.
I mean,
is there a moral
that is one aspect of what I'm saying, right?
Okay.
But I think it's also bad for us. I don't really see what good it is to constantly pathologize Russia as some sort of evil pariah state, especially given how much we need them. Like, Europe is totally dependent on Russia.
I don't disagree with that.
I know. So why are we treating them like the bastard stepchildren?
America's position,
because they acted like a bastard, invading another country and filling up the largest mass graves in Europe since the Yugoslav genocides, is acting like quite the bastard.
Towards Russia literally only changed after they invaded Crimea. Before that, Americans weren't concerned about Russia being a threat or Russia being evil or an enemy.
Really?
Yes, there's the famous debate with Obama versus Mitt Romney, where Mitt Romney says we need to be worried about Russia, and Obama's like, the Cold War called, they want their policy back, and everyone laughed at Mitt Romney, and he looked like a fucking buffoon.
But now, in the last, say, 5 years,
because of Russia's direct actions of invading Crimea and destabilizing the region.
Why?
Opinions have changed.
I don't agree that was destabilization, right? And it doesn't matter. What's the American investment in Ukraine?
Hundreds of thousands of people were displaced. No, millions of people were displaced. The Ukrainian economy took a nosedive. People were afraid to invest into Ukraine. Radical groups that people talk about gained more influence on both sides of the conflict. People died. What do you mean it wasn't destabilizing to invade? It was inherently destabilizing. What is he even talking about?
The American investment.
They did not stabilize after. There was no peace. There was no, for 8 years. For 8 years, there was nothing to stop it. The Minsk Accords failed, both. So they inherently, that was destabilization. I don't even know what that point meant. I don't even know if he realizes what he said.
Well, America believes that the world would be better and safer if everyone is under a Western liberal democracy. This is what the liberal hegemonic theory is. That's not imperialism.
Yes, it is.
No.
Yes, it is.
I
cannot for the fucking life of me understand how America
did not go to Ukraine and say, take liberalism. It was the Ukrainian people on the streets, whether during the Orange Revolution or the Revolution of Dignity during the Euromaidan, who went onto the streets and protested for these reforms to move towards the European Union. You polled the Ukrainian people. We did not go there and force it upon them. They made that determination for themselves. How is that imperialism if they made the determination for themselves? They decided they wanted to do that. That's the imperialism. It isn't Russia invading Ukraine very blatantly so it can have military bases in the country. That's not the imperialism. Come on, man.
It's about Ukraine. If it's not to corral and hold Russia at bay.
So, well, wait a minute.
Why
should America just say, listen, we know that Russia was our main power competitor for the last 60, 70 years, and that brought us closer to the brink of global annihilation than any other point in all of human existence. But now they've thrown the towel, and we should just assume that they'll never grow up again to become that power, and we should just let them, start absorbing other countries and build back.
Right,
power.
There we go. Right, okay. So it is about corralling Russia, pushing them back as far as they can be pushed back. Right?
No, it's saying you can play in the sandbox with everyone else according to the rules that the world has abided by, and if you don't,
America sets.
Well, since America and the rest of the
wait, say that America sets the rules. Russia set the rule. They signed the Budapest Memorandum saying they would respect Ukraine's territorial integrity. They set the rules. Then when they didn't like the rules anymore, they said, never mind. Oh my God, man. Dude, poor Russia, man. They're the victim in every instance.
Western liberal democracy countries happen to be the most powerful in the world. And also, since I believe in
man, being Russian must be like great narratively, because like no matter what, you could literally invade another country and start filling up mass graves and you're still the victim.
Western liberal democracy, I believe, has the moral weight here. Okay,
right. So you can play by our rules. That we've boiled this down to. We're strong enough to be able to do it.
You can play by our rules, or you can fuck off.
So you're in favor of crushing Russia?
That's not in favor of crushing Russia.
That's so bad.
I'm taking Sargon.
What you're saying is, if it's not in favor of crushing Russia, you're saying the Russians have got no right to fight back.
I'm literally
Sargon, that's a little.
I'm taking John Mieschmeyer's perspective of offensive realism. Okay.
Right. So you're conquering the world in self-defense. Right. Again, to absolutely pin Russia in a great power into a corner.
That is not a fair framing. Okay.
That is exactly what's happening.
If you can't play by the fucking rules of freedom and democracy, where you engage in free trade, you don't fucking murder your own citizens, is conquering the world? Come on.
No, this is a distinctly imperial mindset. It's incredly high-handed.
Well, can we hold on? Can we get some definitions
to the Russians?
Sargon.
It is to take everything from them. No wonder
Carl, you've used the term imperialism a lot. I was under the impression imperialism was where a nation goes, takes over an area, installs a government, and basically rules over the people. That's not necessarily what we're doing.
I think that there are many kinds of imperialism, and I'm not interested in arguing the toss. This is definitely an imperialistic mindset.
Well, how are you defining imperialism then? Because if we're incentivizing them by offering them
we'll
financial aid,
if you like,
it's a different thing than if we're going
call this
in.
Athenian imperialism, right?
Look, what's America's offering Ukraine financial aid to stop their corruption
in exchange for becoming a liberal democracy,
right? And Russia is invading the country and setting up a puppet government. Which of those is imperialism? I'm curious.
They're both imperialism.
Okay, but if we had to rank order them, which is the worst
America
form
and Russia
of
are both
imperialism? Which is a more favorable form of imperialism to the local population?
Who cares? I think the Ukrainian people care if they're being blown up or if they're being offered trade deals. Guys, I got a question for everybody at home. Would you rather your grandma be blown to smithereens and you come back to her corpse, right, to find her skull just completely smashed in by the roof caving in on her, or due to the bombs dropped upon her village, or would you rather be offered some American consumer products? This is a very difficult decision to make. I can't really figure it out. If somebody at home or maybe in the comment section could maybe give me an answer to this question, it's a real moral conundrum for me. If anybody, maybe site chat, maybe even gutter chat could figure it out, I would really appreciate it. I can't figure it out myself.
Who cares?
The local population cares. That's who cares.
Yeah, so what?
Wait. What do you mean who cares?
That's not the question.
Love the but the Russians feel this, the Russians feel that. Well, what about the Ukrainians? Who cares? Who cares with the Ukrainians? Who cares?
Right? You started the conversation.
You started with the imperialism line.
You started this conversation by saying that that this is the only alternative for Russia. Okay. And you agree with me that there's no neutral position. And part of the reason I think there's no neutral position is because Russia won't allow there to be a neutral position. So you can't, if there's only two options in the world, and it's your version of imperialism through saying, hey, be a Western democracy where you can trade and create a functioning society where your people are happy, or Russia fucking invade you, and these are your only two options. The American form of quote unquote imperialism is obvious.
Calebod Faith has donated $5. Love you, Dylan. Mr. Bakhmut segment. I was worried Prigozhin announcing he was cut off from ammunition was to lure a scuffed Ukrainian advancement. Things are good though.
Well, Bakhmut's still in a very difficult position, and I mean, from the analysts I'm talking to, they still believe Ukraine is going to eventually withdraw, because it's just very difficult for them to hold it, and I tend to agree with them. But of course, I'm not the generals. I don't have access to the information. They've held out much longer than anybody could have anticipated, longer than even the Battle of Stalingrad. So the situation still looks bad, and but they're still holding out, and it's crazy how long they've been holding out. I mean, for the last 4 or 5 months, every other day we've seen people on Twitter and social media saying Bakhmut's about to fall, Bakhmut's about to fall, Bakhmut's about to fall, and every single time the Ukrainians have defied expectations, just like they have for the entirety of this war.
Obviously, the better solution here.
And thank you for the $5.
Well, gee, if you frame it like that, I guess
just say it. Just say it. Okay, win.
The point, though,
you're the one that brought up imperialism, Carl. I didn't want to go this route, but you.
I do think, though, that fighting between the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Wagner Group has undercut the Russian advance to some degree. I do think that's almost undeniable at this point.
You're both imperialistic. You're both imperial.
I have one question while I have the floor here. Carl, does a governing system affect the population's economic conditions?
Right, I'm just going to answer the question that you asked first, right? So you're both imperial powers, and the Americans follow the Athenian model, and of course the Russians follow the Spartan model. Now it means that you have now taken territory or you're trying to take territory right up to the Russian border, right? The Russians, not being clever or liberal or rich, don't know what else to do other than simply use force, because that's what they've always done, right? Ukraine, right? What I think would be the right thing to have done is for Ukraine to be pro-Russian, right? It is their hinterland. It is on their border. They have.
It is their hinterland. It is the Lebensraum of the Russian people. They must submit to their masters. It is the new Russian Reich that must be developed. The living space must be expanded. Dude, what the fuck is this delusion, man? It is their hinterland. They must exist as a Russian state. The Ukrainians must accept the corruption. The Ukrainians must accept the oligarchs. The Ukrainians must accept the lack of freedom of speech. Dude, if the government that we saw under Yanukovych during the Euromaidan, if we saw the laws that were introduced in Euromaidan protests, including some laws that basically just outlawed protest, I'm not kidding. There was just laws introduced that outlawed protest. If that was introduced by Keir Starmer, when he wins the next elections, right, and he becomes the next prime minister of the UK, if that was introduced by Keir Starmer in the United Kingdom, right, Sargonofakkad, his face would be red. He'd turn into like an old cartoon, like foghorn, just with steam just coming out, just yelling, frothing at the mouth, like how he would be so over the top about it. But the Ukrainians, they just have to accept that because they're in the Russian hinterland. Like, get the fuck out of here. Oh my God. Really? So they just have to so Sargon basically, this is his advertisement to the Ukrainian people. Hello, Ukrainian people. To live in Russia is suffering. It is suffering. It will always be suffering. That is history. That is just what it is. It will always be terrible with no freedom of expression, authoritarianism, and it is how it is. Autocracy forever. And that's your future. You don't get a choice. It just is what it is. I know you've tried to develop your own political institutions. You want to move your own way. You have your own interests. No, you're in their hinterland. And so you must just be subservient to them, accept the oligarchs, accept the corruptions, and accept that your living standard will always be shit. You must accept that your country is just going to be garbage forever. It is what it is. What a terrible pitch. My goodness. No, just terrible, terrible pitch. Oh my goodness.
Have an ancient connection with that place.
Oh
America has no fucking connection with that place, apart from Joe Biden's son, obviously. You know, apart from the money that American elites are siphoning out of it, America has no connection with Ukraine, and it's got no particular business.
I mean, Russia has an ancient connection. Fucking
dog. The money that they're siphoning out of it. Russia's like literally like fucking looting like washing machines and dryers and microwaves and cars and jewelry and like just like basically copper wire out of the walls of homes. And it's like, oh my God, but America did a trade deal. That's the real crime here. That's the only connection America has. It seems that it's more beneficial for the Ukrainians that they want that. That ultimately should be their decision, man. My goodness. Dude, this is terrible. Honestly, Sargon's position is worse than I have seen most people's position on Ukraine. He has probably one of the worst positions on Ukraine I've seen. I'm not kidding. Like the only people I can think of are like literally the most hardcore Russian nationalists. Like this is terrible. This is actually god awful.
Over Ukraine, so I'm not sure that's good.
So what?
Okay. So the American imperialism is basically America saying, "Hey, our system of governance and our
rest." No, hang on. The Russians won't rest while they think that their immediate borders are, frankly, under enemy control. That's how they'll see it, right? Now, I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying I think this is. Right? And I think,
well, the thing is, he says this is, but the thing is, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland, and Finland, when they join NATO, these are all states that are bordering Russia, and it just is, and the Russians had to deal with it, and they haven't invaded the countries. So we could just make it just is to them. We could just be like, we're gonna send Ukrainians weapons, you're gonna leave, and until you leave, we're gonna keep sending them weapons, and it just is. Like, if there's the argument, I could just say that back. And it just is. You're just going to have to deal with it, Russia. You're not the power you used to be. The era of, like, you know, the Tsardom is over. Welcome to the 21st century. People like self-determination now. It is what it is. We're developing international laws, international norms, and you're violating a lot of them right now. Stop. Like, it just is.
Putin has just outright said this about Ukraine, and they're obviously trying for regime change. Right? They're not just...
Yeah, they're doing imperialism. Yes, by force.
Yes, you both are. Okay, it's not a moral judgment.
Yeah, but you're saying you're bad for being imperialistic. At the same time saying Russia's totally justified in being imperialistic. You're the one that has the contradiction.
Well, no, it's not a contradiction, right? You've got no particular interest in Ukraine other than some wildly abstract, like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if Ukraine was a liberal?
We don't want the Soviet Union to be a threat again and destroy the world.
It's not going to be a threat again. Right?
How do you know that?
Russia's a crumbling nation.
That makes it more dangerous.
Yeah, what is a crumbling nation led by an autocrat mafia boss
with nukes? Bleeds people. It bleeds money. And what they're trying to do is to be able to literally to be able to hold their heads up high and say, I'm proud to be a Russian. Right? That's what they're trying to do. And you're doing everything in your power to take that away from them. And the thing is, right,
Germany had the exact same motivation under Hitler. And look where they ended up.
No,
yes, they did.
Jesus Christ! I don't agree with that at all.
What do you mean I don't think the Western powers fucked us over after the collapse in World War I, and we need to hold our heads up high and identify around a German identity.
Nazi
blah blah blah.
It does sound straight from the rise and fall of the Third Reich.
That's a very very reductive view of that. Right?
Yeah, I'm not saying they're going to become fucking genocidal. I'm just saying that's the same motivation.
Actually, many international scholars say they already are, but continuing. I mean, when you have people like Dmitry Medvedev saying, you know, Ukrainians is a disease of the mind. They're just little Russians, you know? When you have that type of dialogue going on while people are being dumped in the mass graves, you know, the question of genocide does come up.
That leads countries and people to all sorts of crazy shit.
Okay,
yeah.
So one way of avoiding crazy shit would be to respect them.
Oh my God, that's so naive.
So
I can't even believe you're saying it.
It is incredibly naive that the idea that if we just respected the Russians, they wouldn't bomb anyone, they wouldn't invade anyone. If we just, you know, give them a big hug and said, "You do you, boo," they would just leave everyone alone. It's ridiculous, man. It's like childlike view of foreign policy.
Hey, Carl?
What? So you don't think the Russians should be respected?
No, I think they should be respected, but I don't think it's going to change anything.
There's some form of respect that's going to solve this problem.
Yes.
Well, yeah, possibly respecting the fact that they're a great power, right?
So if America, but what does that mean tangibly? Because if America says
that means tangibly not trying to take.
I mean, if I say we're a great power, so we're going to invade Mexico and we're going to become the 51st state because we're sick of the cartels, right? Does the world just have to respect that because we're the United States? It's a ridiculous standard to set. It basically says that we're America, we can do whatever we want because we're America, right? Using this justification, right? If the justification is they're a great power, so we have to respect that they're a great power. If that's the idea, then I could just argue the fact that America is a greater power. And that's not really like, let's be for real. America has more military bases, we have more aircraft carriers, we have more ships, we have more basically everything outside of nukes. We're extremely powerful, and our military not nearly as corrupt, a lot more effective, and we haven't had to lose a single soldier. And we're tearing apart Russian military columns just by sending the weapons over there. The Ukrainians are doing it. If the argument is, well, it might makes right here. You have to respect the power because it's powerful. If that's the case, then someone could just make the argument like, okay, America's really powerful. The Russians have showed themselves to be lacking a lot of the power we thought they had. Take advantage of the opportunity. If we're going to get into this type of like real politic, remove all of the morality from it, it's all just a giant chess game and we're all players on it, you know?
Ukraine into NATO.
Okay, but so if America says, but wait a minute, if America says, because this all started in 2014, it had nothing to do with NATO. It had to do with Ukraine.
Decades.
This had to do with Ukraine over its own sovereign fucking volition, wanting to have closer economic ties with the EU because the EU is richer than Russia. And Russia's saying, fuck you. We're not going to allow that. Okay. It had nothing to do with NATO at that period.
So.
What?
So.
Okay.
Dude, he just does not care about, just like, God, man, it's crazy how this entire conversation, at no point has Sargon at all considered what Ukrainians want. In fact, he's explicitly said that what Ukrainians want does not matter. It's all a giant chess game, and we might as well just give Ukraine to the Russians. It is what it is, to the state which he says is basically a perpetual hell. We should condemn the Ukrainians to live in hell because it is what it is basically what he's saying. And what the Ukrainians want be damned. What a pessimistically just terrible view of the world.
Okay, so
I hate to be callous about this,
but this is the problem.
But
when
nobody
you say
cares about Ukraine's opinion.
No, okay, but that's why
this is a moral.
Sudetenland is the hinterland. You know, you got to think about. Come on, man. This is crazy, man. This is terrible.
Any sense to me?
That the Americans
you're saying
in order to take this province.
You're saying America and the West should respect Russia, but when you say that, what you mean is by respecting Russia, we should let them do whatever the fuck they want in their own sphere of influence and take over and fuck over anyone they want.
Russia did not invade, or it's not going to invade Ukraine if Ukraine has a pro-Russian leadership, right? There's no
and if they
the cartel will not murder you if you just give them what they want. Got you. Okay. MS-13 relations with Sargon.
They don't have a pro-Russian leadership, then they do.
Dude, could you imagine you go to like the police chief, MS-13 is going to behead my grandmother if I don't give them all this money. Well, did you think about giving them the money? Did you think about giving them the money? Then she doesn't get beheaded. Have you ever considered that before? Oh, wow. No one. This is some revolutionary commentary.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay, so fuck Ukraine. Basically, is your position? Just tell them fuck every country surrounding Russia.
Well, it's either that or fuck Russia, and fuck Russia ends up possibly in a much worse position than fuck Ukraine.
This is crazy.
No, but again, if you're just making the argument to try to avoid World War III, fine, I understand that.
No, I'm trying.
But you're trying to make some sort of deeper moral claim, which I don't understand at all.
Yeah, I'm trying to make the argument civilized Russia, right?
Well, that's our argument, though.
Yeah, but no, it's not.
And Putin is Putin. No, our argument is civilized Russia, and Putin is standing in the way.
Russia will never become "quote unquote" civilized under Putin.
It can't. It can't. Listen. I asked you a question about governing systems. Do governing systems affect economic conditions?
Hang on. No. You've just made a wild statement that I don't think you can substantiate. Right? You can't know what will be the case. But what Putin, I think, does do well for Russia is give them a sense of being competently led, and that Russia can win victories against the great Satan.
Do people want?
Has nothing to do with civilized.
Do people want foreign war victories, or do they want better economic conditions? Right. Carl,
they're not. This isn't a material question, Adam. Right? And I know
it is. You made the argument that Putin. You made the argument that Putin increased the people of Russia's economic conditions. You made that argument.
I'm not making. I didn't make that argument at all. I made the argument that he could.
You said he was the best. Right? You said he was the best that they've had. That they were in dire economic conditions.
But you just assumed that meant material conditions. I'm not talking.
He means just that it gives the people like this sense of we're part of the greater Russian Empire again.
Right. Okay. Because Russia can win victories.
Dude, it's so
over America.
This is
even if they're small.
What a terrible existence for every country. I mean. To be clear, the Russian sphere of influence is literally any country that touches Russia. In this world, we're talking about the sphere of influence which Russia just has control over. They can do whatever they want with, and nobody can say anything. It's every country they touch, which ends up being more people than is even in Russia right now, and they all have to be condemned to just eternal suffering, what has basically been described as hell on earth, and in a system that he is now admitting that has not seen economic progress. So, like, what's the appeal of being part of Russia? Dude, Sargonofakkad has been the best advocate for the abolition of the Russian state I have ever seen. He could turn Alexei Navalny into a Chechen separatist.
We're unbelievably small, right? America has, like, and I'm looking at this as a third party, right? America has Russia so totally fucking whipped. I don't understand why you need to keep turning this.
Why is that? Again, I don't understand why it's a moral position to say that having the Russian people have a sense that they're not a dying empire is worth sacrificing all the populations around the country. How is that moral?
Sacrificing all the populations around the country. That's a ridiculous, extreme statement.
No, they're literally invading Ukraine to do this very thing.
Because of what's happened, right?
Because they're not a pro-Russian government of their own volition anymore.
Yes. Okay? That's the case, right? But if you want the Russians to not feel like they're constantly under threat, as in to be in an emotional position where they might be receptive to American goods.
Short Fat Otaku in chat. Short Fat Otaku. This is one of the worst takes I've ever seen on this war. This is bad. I have seen tankies, like hardcore Marxist-Leninist, with better positions on this war than Sargon's. Sargon is actually like one of the worst. He has one of the worst takes. I have heard, like, honestly, there are probably members of the Russian government that have a better position on this war than Sargon himself. This is just terrible. Russia is suffering. To exist in Russia is suffering, and the Ukrainians must accept that suffering and a lack of economic prosperity because they're the hinterland, and they must accept it. And anyone on Russia's border must accept it, meaning more people than is even in the state of Russia itself must accept that they are the hinterland of Russia, or as I would call them, the Lebensraum, the living space of Russia. And it is what it is. Because we gotta respect Russia, because Russia's just such a great and powerful power. What a terrible position. What a terrible position. From this frame of thinking, it would just make more sense to abolish Russia as a state. Because if Russia is nothing but suffering and horror and hell and economic desperation and autocracy, like, it just sounds like Russia is just a complete fucking shithole which shouldn't exist in the first place. That's how he's selling Russia right now. And that's not even something I believe. And I'm supposed to be the Russophobe.
Services, American moral innovations. Because the thing is, right, it's not that the Russians don't recognize, it's not they're not European, right? They do recognize that these things would be good, but they also have undergone hardships like you wouldn't fucking believe.
We've debated Sargon a dozen times after this debate. My goodness, has he changed his position at all after this? Like, has the last year made him reflect at all? And it's like, how little consideration goes into the Ukrainian people. They just have to be a pro-Russian state. It just is what it is. It just is what it is. My goodness, man. It's just so bad. I'm honestly taken aback by how bad this position is. I didn't think it would be this bad. I thought his position would be better. I really did. I didn't think it would be good. I just didn't think it would be this bad. Sargon's still a realist, but now his position is like, wow, Russia collapsed a lot faster than I thought. Man, it's almost like autocracy, corruption, and oligarchy are really bad systems of government that are not really good for running modern 21st century states. And the world has changed a lot since the barons of Moscow and ancient Muscovy. My goodness, who would have thought?
Believe, right? No matter what.
Man, I wonder why the Ukrainian country wants to move away from the system of governance that has turned what was once a mighty empire into what we see now, which it just feels like a repeat of the Russo-Japanese War.
You do to the Russians, they will always be able to say, well, we've had worse. Always, in every situation. And they will just tough it out, right? The one virtue I think you could really attribute to Russia is stubbornness, right? They have undergone and come through the worst things that have ever happened to humanity. Like, seriously, it's just it's just staggering that within living memory, people have been eating their own children, right? Do you like you?
The same could be saying Ukraine went through the fucking Holodomor.
Could you imagine? Think about that too. He's saying like eating their own children. Could you imagine? You go to the Ukrainians and they're eating their own children because that's just what they have to do. And you're like, I know you want to do your own country and be your own thing, but like, you're the hinterland. You got to eat a few kids every once in a while. You know, to live in Russia is to be in hell. It is what it is. I mean, hey, you've got like 2 kids. Just choose your least favorite one. Which one like rocks on their chair a little bit more during lunchtime? You know, your once a week lunchtime.
Okay. Yes, I know.
The tragedy that Ukraine has suffered under the fucking heel of Russia for the last 3 fucking 100 years is
the Bolsheviks. Insane. That's the Bolsheviks.
And the czars.
Shut the fuck up. It wasn't just the Bolsheviks. The Russian Empire, the regulations on the Ukrainian language, the violence that they engaged in Ukraine was fucking awful. The stuff they did to Ukrainian Jews was awful. Dude, the Tsardom was not friendly to the Ukrainian people. There's a reason why Ukrainian intellectuals fled to Austria-Hungary. It wasn't because Austria-Hungary was super nice to Ukrainians. It was that they at least let them speak their language. There's a reason people talk about like Russian-speaking peoples in Ukraine. The reason they exist in Ukraine in the first place is because of those language suppression laws put in place by the Tsardom.
The Tsars were trying to erase.
The Tsars weren't starving them out ideologically.
No, but they were
right?
trying
no, they
to.
saw the
They were
Cossacks,
trying to erase their entire culture. They're trying to make it illegal to speak Ukrainian. But then you've got the rest of what's happened. That's just one thing, right? Like the Bolsheviks killed something like 20 million Christians. They burned down dozens of cathedrals. Right. Like no, don't just go right because you're like, oh.
Wait, why should I care about a bunch of cathedrals being burnt? Why should I care about all these people dying? That's their hinterland. That's the hinterland. It is what it is. It's the hinterland of Russia. If they want to kill 20 million people, it's the hinterland, right? It's the Russian living space. Why should I care? It's the hinterland. Fuck, God, my goodness.
Oh, look what they did to Ukraine. No, they did this to everything. The entire country. And then when you go back before that, you've got the tremendous, like, the Tsars owned the vodka industry. So they kept the entire country just in this perpetual state of drunken, like, depression. And then before that, you've got hundreds of years of Mongol domination. And it's just like, right, okay, this is shit. And so I'm not surprised the Russians.
That Treasure Island meme was a Ukrainian creation. I didn't know that, but that's awesome.
Like, we don't care. You're gonna treat us on our terms, and if you compromise with us, then maybe we can both get some of what we want and walk away feeling like we got, feeling like we didn't get fucking done over. Right? But Americans don't approach Russia like this at all.
To be clear, the Russians invaded Ukraine by giving them their demands after they invade the country. The Ukrainians are the ones that are going to be, he says, nobody feels like they've been done over. You know who's going to feel done over? The fucking Ukrainians. The people in question who are going to have to live with this rule, with these things that he's talking about. He's like, oh, nobody feels done over. The Ukrainians feel done over. The country in question will feel done over. But he hasn't considered what they want at all. It doesn't even come into his analysis whatsoever. His position is just so, on a basic level, immoral. Honestly, I would even go as far to say it's a fundamentally evil position. I would go as far to say that. To say that it's just completely say that what the Ukrainians want is completely pointless. They must exist as the pro-Russian state because they are the hinterland. They must exist in a perpetual state of suffering because that it just is what it is. It's so evil, man.
You keep saying compromise and respect, but when you say compromise and respect, what you mean is let Russia take over the surrounding countries around.
Oh, you can take them over.
Okay. It's totally insane to me to say that a country just looking across its borders at the EU and at America and saying, we think that that's a better way of life. We want to start moving in that direction. You say that's imperialism on the same level as Russia rolling tanks into the country and saying, you're going to do what we say.
You have to have a Western liberal democracy, which means access to Western companies.
He just completely avoided the question. He completely avoided what he was saying, and he avoided. This is the second time I've seen him done it. He doesn't want to acknowledge that yes, the rolling of tanks and the bombing and all these killings, which he was saying was bad when he was talking about the Christians in the cathedrals. That was bad, right? But when it comes to Bucha, when it comes to Izium, like, is it bad then? Like,
access for Western elites. What's the difference?
No, but if
it's
there's
about access for Russian companies and Russian elites.
You cannot compare. No, because you're saying
America didn't invade Ukraine and enforce it by gun. We did it. You just cannot compare it.
We have to say
they wanted this. They wanted to trade with the rest. That's the whole reason Euromaidan happened in the first place.
Sacrifice all of these countries' self-determination and sovereignty just to appease this idea of the Russian Empire in the minds of the population.
You don't think Ukraine can be neutral?
I don't, because of Russia.
Then it doesn't have
not because of the West,
does it?
I don't think it could be neutral because of Russia.
I agree. It can't be neutral because of Russia.
Okay.
But it also can't be neutral because of America.
I disagree with that completely.
Right. Okay. See, America, this is always the point. America did nothing wrong. We basically don't exist.
No, that's not what I mean. America's fine.
That's what you're saying.
America's fine being friends with horrible dictators.
America has no business in Ukraine.
It's not a question of that. That's the wrong framing. Ukraine of its own choice.
It's a question to the Russians.
Ukraine of its own choices. We want to become
Ukraine's
more.
Own choice.
Okay, so Ukraine's sovereignty is off the table.
You said it is. It can't be neutral. right?
It doesn't
never really be sovereign.
Okay, not being neutral does not necessarily make your state not sovereign. You can join to. Are we saying that the French are not a sovereign state? Like any nation state that is within a larger alliance with a nation larger than itself means it is not sovereign. States can make the decision to join NATO. Poland made that decision. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania made that decision. Romania, Hungary, all these states made the decision as a sovereign state to join NATO. They didn't have to. Here's an example: Austria. Austria was forced to be a neutral country by Stalin in order to, withdraw to the country. The one terms that was entered into Austria was that they would have to be a neutral country. They couldn't join NATO. Cold War ends. Everybody else joins NATO. Austria doesn't. Why? Financial reasons. They chose not to. They could have, but they didn't. They chose not to join it. And by the way, the only reason they can is because they're surrounded by NATO countries. I do want to put that out there. But they chose not to. They made the sovereign decision not to join, while the other countries made the sovereign decision to join. When we say sovereign, that doesn't mean other countries don't have any influence over you. If that's the idea that being a sovereign country is when other countries don't have influence over you, then no country in the world is sovereign whatsoever. Especially in the age of international institutions and the International Criminal Court and the World Trade Organization. Like, oh my gosh, then nobody's sovereign.
I said there's no political party. There's no power base. There's no thought process in Ukraine that's saying we want to be the magical neutral state. Okay, there's people in Ukraine who want to be more of EU Western, and there's people that want to be more Russian. That's it. There's no middle ground position that anyone has.
I agree. It's not really a sovereign state, then, is it?
Of course it is. What are you talking about?
It's not. You're always look, a sovereign state would be able to say, well, look, we're not going to get involved in either side of a conflict, right?
It's not, no. That
would be a sovereign choice. No, it wasn't coerced by either side.
What is that? What does that mean? Sovereign countries are countries that don't pick sides. Okay, whatever. That is the silliest thing I've ever heard in my life. That is so silly. Okay, well, so if that was the case, was America not a sovereign state when it decided to send weapons to the UK? Like, what is this definition of sovereignty?
Ukraine can say that they want to have closer economic ties with other countries.
Yes.
And everyone votes for that, and that's a sovereign fucking position.
I don't agree.
I don't know, like, this is not an international law definition. Like, this is not, like, I don't know what is his definition of sovereignty? What is this weird definition of sovereignty? Let me look up like there must be some IR definition of sovereignty I could pick up, because I can't figure out what his definition of sovereignty is here.
Was it not?
I think this is totally naive because like you said, there's no option to not. You choose one or the other, and so they're going to choose the one that seems to be the most pleasurable and provides the most material benefits. Obviously.
Okay, so but if that's your definition,
this is like an independent sovereign choice.
This is
okay. International law defines a sovereign state as having a permanent population, defined territory, government not under another, and has the capacity to interact with other sovereign states. Like this, like I maybe he doesn't like the IR definition of sovereignty, but that, like, Ukraine checks all of these boxes, and the only thing that is stopping it from checking, like, I think all of the boxes here, when it would come to, like, I mean, it even has a defined territory, actually. A government not under another. That would be the only part of it that isn't sovereign. And the only reason it isn't is because of the Russian invasion. If the Russians were out of Ukraine, then it would fall under all this definition for, like, sovereign state, no questions asked. But I don't know. Maybe he has a different definition of that. Who knows?
It's coercion. It's very weird that you're taking this position, because you're basically, we had a debate very long time ago about whether free exists. And you took the position that
the only sovereign states in Europe, there's only one sovereign state in Europe, and that is Switzerland. Everyone else is a sovereign. Everyone else except for the Swiss, and not even the Austrians, because technically they're still in the EU.
Does, and under the guise that it doesn't matter if people really have, people can just make the choice. Okay, obviously no one has a completely free will choice that's detached from all the environment, everything around them. Okay, and you're now making the opposite position. Like, yeah, under your definition of sovereignty, there would be no sovereignty for any fucking country in the world, because countries always have to make decisions about what they think is better, what they think is worth over what exists currently. That's what sovereignty means.
I'm not arguing that countries have free will.
No, you're saying country. You're saying no country, under your definition of sovereignty, no country has sovereignty.
That's not true. And you can think of it. If you spent 2 seconds, you could think of examples.
I can't.
Of course you can. Try.
Well,
Try think of a country that espouses neutrality.
Wait, so the only sovereign countries are countries that espouse neutrality? But that's not even... But that I would assume that doesn't have other states still influencing it. Or world, for example, he's an anti-globalist, but there's international organizations that still govern their conduct, like the WTO. So what does that mean they're not sovereign because of the WTO? Like...
No, that's not... No. Because you said that if there's two choices presented to a country, and a country decides to go in one direction of its own volition, that's not sovereignty.
Yeah, but
I'm saying that's not a fair way of looking at what sovereignty is, because so much of life, so much of reality is we don't live in the Tom Jump objective perfect universe where we can all manifest our will by thought alone. We have to choose from the buffet of choices that reality presents us. And that's what sovereignty is. And that's what free will is. It's saying, I get to choose from this table what direction I want to go. And Ukraine is saying, I want to choose to have favorable relations with the EU. And Russia's saying, well, we're going to march tanks in here and take your choice away from you.
Yeah, but there's, like you said, it can't be neutral, right? Imagine, do you think the Americans aren't meddling in some way in Ukraine, the Ukrainian politicians who chose to be pro-Russia?
I would imagine that that Russia and America and all countries of power are meddling.
So now you're just as bad as each other, because that's all the Russians are doing.
One is meddling.
Dog. Okay, moral question for everyone at home. What's worse? Like funding an NGO or filling a mass grave? I want you guys to figure it out for me. And what's worse, funding an NGO that like pushes like anti-corruption or pro-democracy, or mass grave? Just think about it. Get back to me. So you can email me, DylanBurnsTV@gmail.com, your answers if you really want to.
With incentives, and one is using force, Sargon.
So why are you meddling?
There's a giant difference, don't you think?
Why are you meddling in Ukraine? What possible interest do you have in Ukraine?
Are you saying that there's no difference between forceful intervention and incentives? Like, that's crazy.
I'm saying war is a continuation of politics.
You're saying why can't we all just be isolated?
He's got to, dude. This Adam needs to like hold him down on that. Like, what's the difference between the force and the incentives? Can you tell me? Because it feels like he sees no distinction.
That's what you're saying.
No,
like he sees no distinction between me saying, "Would you like to buy this whiskey I have here?" and "You're going to buy this whiskey I have here." Like, he sees no difference. Come on.
I'm saying what you're saying. No, I'm saying that I agree with your position that Ukraine can't be neutral, right? Which means it can't truly be sovereign, because it would never be able to make a decision that wasn't countermanded or coerced by one power or the other, right? So Ukraine's sovereignty, I think, is basically like Belgium, right? It's basically a fiction, okay? And it's a useful political fiction. I'm not saying it's not, right? And I'm not saying that ideally Ukraine shouldn't be sovereign. I think ideally it should. It would be nice if we had this perfect Westphalian order where no country ever crossed the borders of another country or interfered subversively with their inner workings and things like that. That'd be great, right? But that's not the world we live in. So let's not pretend that it is, right? And so the Americans, the American investment in Ukraine is subversive, right? It's going to be with money and promises and possibly who knows what spy games gone on and whatnot, right? But the Russian investment in Ukraine is a lot more direct and heavy, right? For America, Ukraine
so that's one way to describe it. It's a lot more direct. America offers a trade deal or offers some aid. Russia offers the level of the destruction of everything, of leveling city after city after city, displacing millions of people, killing hundreds of thousands, and America offers like some toasters being traded. Like, these, you can't figure it out, man. You can't figure out the moral difference.
Is what, 20,000 miles away, 10,000 miles away, something like that. This isn't a big deal, but for Russia, it's literally 0 miles away. And a country that's constantly demonizing you is like, yeah, we're going to try and bring them into our fold, to our sphere of influence, into NATO, which is a very strong sphere of influence, right? This is a legitimate security concern.
So Ukraine, again, as I said, the people in Ukraine were not even in favor of joining NATO until Russia invaded Crimea and took it over. Okay. Yeah. So this is Russia's own doing here. They're creating the situation that the Ukrainian people want to turn away from them.
As if, again, this is like the hatchling argument, as if, oh, well, then nothing happened. The Russians have got no opinion on the expansion of NATO up until the annexation of Crimea.
So again, this started from them trying to have positive EU relations. It didn't have to do with NATO.
No, they are literally accusing NATO of being behind their moves. Right, like it is reactions to NATO.
Russia,
I don't agree. I think that you can't say it's not true.
Putin had publicly stated, and Russia publicly stated, that in 2008, when they said they weren't going to put Ukraine and Georgia on the MAP program to NATO, they said that's a good thing. They were on board with that. That was the compromise solution. That was the quote-unquote neutral position.
Yeah.
And there had been no change from that whatsoever until Russia invaded Crimea.
Apart from Zelensky, right? Like the whole thing has been...
Yeah, once Russia starts invading Ukraine and starts funding...
Oh my God. So Silicon Valley Bank had about 200 billion on its balance sheet. Ironically, 200 billion is also about as much we've sent to Ukraine. Charlie Kirk shouldn't have the right to vote. There should be a law passed specifically stopping Charlie Kirk from having the right to vote, and he shouldn't have the right to the First Amendment. Because I believe in the non-aggression principle. I believe this guy shouldn't be going around and beating the crap out of people. He shouldn't be stabbing people. I believe most people shouldn't be doing that. And by doing this, he's giving people brain tumors. And so he shouldn't be allowed to speak. He alone should not be allowed to vote, because him voting is irresponsible. If felons can't be allowed to vote, then he should not be allowed to vote. My God, this is, oh my God, I'm so ashamed to be an American.
Separatists, so that they're thrust into a civil war for the last 7 years, then yeah, Ukraine's like, maybe we should revisit this whole NATO thing.
Yeah, but this is bollocks though, right? Because like you can look at...
I DM'd you stuff on Sargon's definition of sovereign. Okay, let me look at Short Fucker Topic. Oh my God, your definition. Okay, let me read it. Among conservative political theorists, sovereign refers to the highest level of legitimate authority. Example, if you and I disagree, our options are to fight each other, negotiate, isolate from each other, or submit ourselves to the arbitration of a level of authority above us. States are said to exist on a level of anarchy because there is no higher arbitration to appeal to. They are sovereign, the utmost level, and so conflicts between states... Okay, so he's using a definition of sovereign that nobody else uses except for him and a chosen few other conservatives. Therefore, under this, what he's saying right under this definition of sovereign, there are 0 sovereign states on the planet outside of Russia, China, and the United States, because they can ignore the ruling of basically any international body. But if other states ignore the the ruling of like the WTO or other organization, that can have massive detrimental effects for the nation state. And even the United States will at times secede to these international institutions. Maybe even the United States isn't a sovereign organization. I mean, like, under this, there is no sovereign state anywhere at all, period. And so for him, there aren't levels of sovereignty, or there isn't like, well, like they made the decision on their own, and so they made the sovereign decision too. It's just, there is no such thing as sovereignty under this definition. Sovereignty doesn't exist. It's all a lie. Therefore, you can do whatever you want to any other state at all. That would be the logical conclusion of this line of thought. But I don't even think he's thought that. I don't even think he's thought this through to the level of what about international institutions and how they affect it. I know he's an anti-globalist, so this probably plays into that. But my goodness, under this definition of sovereignty, even the neutral states that he talks about, like Austria or Switzerland, like they wouldn't be sovereign either.
A map of just the expansion of NATO and see it creeping ever closer to Russia's borders. And as far as the Russians are concerned...
He has thought about it. Keep reading. Oh my God, I don't want to read this nonsense. Because there's no higher arbitration to, and they are sovereign at the utmost level. So conflicts between states can involve fighting, negotiation, isolation, but not arbitration by a higher power. We used to solve this dilemma by saying God was the higher power, and states would sometimes submit to the church arbitration, but those days are over. In the realist game of empires, spheres of power, lesser states are in a lower level of authority than great powers, making those states not sovereign. They are ruled over by a great power. In the realist view, because Ukraine is a pawn, not a player, as the highest level of government will always be the authority of the governor and not truly sovereign. This is so devoid of any morality whatsoever. For somebody who really bases, from a lot of his earlier commentary, bases like our morality is better than the other morality, I like the West because the West is best, to like, well, it's just a realist game, it's all power politics, it is what it is, you know what I'm saying, boys? Like this is so devoid of just like any morality, man. This is why, but it's also why I hate realism. It's the same reason why I don't like Kissinger. I mean, he just sounds like Kissinger. This whole discussion just sounds like Kissinger unfiltered.
And this is a violation of repeated promises to not do this. And then you get Bush going, oh, well, you know, you wanted to put on the fast track to joining NATO, which, as you said, they were rejected. But you can see the intention, you can see the will behind it. Like,
yeah, but that's part of the benefit of the American system, is that you have Bush.
Who cares? Who cares?
Putin should care. This is the big difference here. We have Bush, who's the super neocon. He wants to throw everyone in NATO. Then you have he can't run for office anymore. Obama comes into power. He has a completely different thought process on Russia. Tries to have positive relationship with Russia completely, and doesn't talk about fast tracking Georgia or Ukraine into NATO whatsoever. But with Putin, you only have to deal with Putin forever because he's an authoritarian dictator.
Yeah, but the president isn't the sole architect of this. Like the permanent
the other NATO countries
apparatus,
also are. But
no, it's the permanent apparatus of the United States and its international policy, right? That no matter what president you have, you basically have the same foreign policy. That's what the Russians see.
But the problem here, and with this conversation, I still don't understand is there's no. You're just describing reality, which I can agree with you could be true, but there's no moral prescription here about why Russia gets to just dictate all its surrounding countries' behavior and say, you can't do what you want to do.
Because otherwise they start invading places. And it turns out that Joe Biden isn't prepared to go to war with Russia over Ukraine.
So we all...
But then we can supply Ukraine with the weapons necessary to defend itself, and we have done that. And over the last year, we have seen it have great effect, where Ukrainians have been able to launch large-scale counteroffensive. I mean, obviously he didn't know that at the time, but I guess this is something that I guess this is a statement that could come back to bite him. And God, I'm drinking whiskey. I'm gonna be honest. I need this to get through the debate. I'm getting that good warm whiskey feeling. I'm gonna end this debate soon. I can't take too much more of this.
We'll just have to have an idea of appeasement, basically. We have to appease the insanity that is Vladimir Putin and
right?
Russia.
Appeasement is if Russia was like, everyone's just sat around doing nothing. And Russia's like, you know what, I think I might invade Turkey. And we're like, oh, well, don't do that.
No.
Take a piece of Turkey instead, a historical piece. And then, and then, I might invade Georgia. Well, take a piece of Georgia too. No, that's not what's happening, right? We're the ones advancing on Russia.
No.
Wait, that is literally, that's what they did in Georgia. They invaded Chechnya. And that's what they did in Ukraine in 2014, and now they're doing it again in 2022. That is literally what they're doing. And if you look at the Russian Ministry of Defense, in the books they're teaching, the Foundation for Geopolitics, okay? Alexander Dugin, people overblow his influence. In the book, it specifically says, and this is taught, mandatory reading in Russian Military Academy. Moldova belongs to Russia. Finland belongs to Russia. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Kazakhstan. There's so much. Ukraine, of course, belongs to Russia. Like, you think that like Putin's end goal is Ukraine, then he's gonna relax and be like, okay, I've secured the Russian hinterlands, it's over. He's gonna keep going. Moldova is like the most obvious next choice because it's not in NATO, it doesn't have anything else to protect them. There's already Russian troops in Moldova anyway, in Transnistria. Not to mention the Russians are threatening to invade Georgia again on social media like a week ago. Dylan, you're drunk. Let me ramble in private about political theory for an hour again. Yes, exactly. Yes, Short Fat Otaku. Short Fat Otaku paragraph posts me a lot. I'll open my phone randomly and it'll be like, and I'll be like, damn, man, I'm not reading that. I try to read it. I don't always, but I try to.
We're not advancing. The world
of course
is changing.
we are. NATO has advanced on Russia.
The world is
This is a
changing, and
fact.
countries want to go in specific directions of their own choice. I know you don't care. You care so much about the thoughts and feelings of the Russian people, but you don't care at all about the sovereignty of all the countries that surround it.
No,
that don't want to be involved with
that's not
Russia.
the question. That's just
That is
not
the question.
When I go to
No,
so I'm going to Ukraine like probably tomorrow. I'm probably gonna stay another night here because just like I don't know, I just don't feel like traveling today. I've been traveling so much recently. I just need like a day to just like just maybe to myself, you know, to just get my mind in order. Probably a good idea before I go into Ukraine. But when I go over there, I'm gonna get a little milk crate and I'm gonna sit it down in Kiev and I'm gonna stand on it. I'm gonna say, people of Ukraine, Sargon has something to say, and I'm just going to play his speech. Just going to play his talking points. I'm just going to cut it all together, edit it all together. And then at the end of it, I'm going to say, you belong to the Russian hinterlands. So, do you submit? I'll see how they react. Oh, no. I'm sure they'll, like, really take well to that.
It's not. That's your moral cover for continuing to advance on Russia, right? But that's getting countries invaded. Right, you giving these they just shut up. You know, it's bollocks. What?
It's not bollocks.
He's literally like morality nonsense.
Invaded Crimea had nothing to fucking do with NATO at all.
No, that's bollocks. That is
not bollocks.
That's just American bollocks, frankly. That is not total bull.
Russia wasn't even making that claim in 2014 that anything to fucking do with NATO.
They've been making that claim for decades. Literally decades.
Taking Crimea
George Bush in 2000. Okay?
How did it have? How the 2014
this is
Maidan protest have
on
anything
the
to do with
forefront
NATO?
of Putin's mind, and he has mentioned it for literally decades, and it's because America doesn't show Russia any respect.
Okay.
That's how they view it, right? And you've got, of course, everyone's got their.
Every time he says that, I just imagine like Joe Biden, like he's walking past Putin. He's like, "What's up, nerd?" He just bumps into him. Putin like falls on the floor. He's like, "My lunch box, my juice box." He's like, he steps on it, like, "Get out of my way, you nerd." Just like giving him swirlies between UN meetings, shoulder checking him.
Reasons for everything. Well, this is my excuse for this. Okay, big deal. Like, no matter what, it depends on whatever position you adopt, the excuses that you adopt. So, like, give me American excuses. Okay, yeah, they're good. They're real, you know, from the American perspective.
You're not giving me
from
any
the Russian
excuses. You're just saying Russia's going to throw a temper
right?
tantrum, and we just have to abide by it. That's
but people die when Russia throws a temper tantrum. So being like, yeah, well, we're just going to keep advancing, like fucking bullish idiots. And now,
you're acting like the American army is positioned itself on the fucking, you know, in Eastern Europe, and it's just marching.
This also all assumes, like, everything. I think a lot of the things Sargon's building up here is like, well, if we just wouldn't have advanced, they wouldn't have invaded. If NATO wouldn't have expanded, they wouldn't have invaded. This also assumes that every single post-Soviet state after the collapse of the Soviet Union would be okay with just basically being a Russian proxy state, doing like just subserving the Russian state. Like the Poles would be okay with it, the Estonians, the Latvians, the Lithuanians, the Ukrainians, the Moldovans, Romanians, the Kazakhs, like everybody, the Belarusians, everybody, the Finns, the Finnish. Definitely, if you look at what they believe they have the claims to, like they would all just be okay with it. And with America not in the picture, they would all be like, yes, Mother Russia is our true master. We are the hinterlands. I'm sure they would love to hear that. Like this all assumes that they wouldn't try to go their own way separate of the Russian state anyway.
Closer and closer to Russia, when in reality what's happening is countries that
let's be for real, like if they did, Russia would invade them, and then there would be no one to defend them, and then there would be nobody helping them. And then this thing, which Sargon has described as hell on earth, as he has described Russia, has now been expanded into more states, bringing more people into this hell on earth that he's described.
Were once aligned with Russia, saying, hey, we want to have our economies and our culture and our philosophy of governance to be more closely aligned with the West. Of their own fucking choice. And Russia's saying, I don't like that. In 2020, okay.
Right, the international community was discussing putting American nukes in Poland.
Yeah, when?
In 2020, I just said. Mm-hmm. Right? Don't act like Poland doesn't have NATO weapons. NATO has got 2 weeks ago from the Sun, NATO increases presence in Poland, more troops. Like, if Russia views NATO as an existential threat, which I think
man, I wonder what could have happened that made America deploy more troops in Poland. Like a state that also Russia believes that it should have basically control over. Man, really figure that one out. I wonder what could have done that. What could have happened in the month preceding this debate that could have possibly motivated that? I don't know. If somebody could email it to me, DylanBurnsTV@gmail.com. I appreciate it.
It does.
What did Russia do the day, right? The literal day Obama was elected? What do you mean, who cares?
Who cares?
What do you, no. You don't get to play this game where you say, America did this, and then you ignore everything that Russia did that led up to America's response.
You won't accept America has done anything. America has rolled the borders of NATO right up past where it said it wouldn't ever put weapons and military.
Also, it's like it says America's done it. It's not just America's expanded NATO. The Poles expanded NATO. The Estonians, the Latvians, the Lithuanians, the Romanians, the Hungarians. All these people expanded NATO of their own volition. They expanded NATO. They chose to do that. They chose it. And the thing is, there's even some countries like Hungary that probably their governments don't even want to be in NATO anymore. But if you poll their people, they still want to be in it. They chose to do it of their own volition. So don't just say, oh, America did this, America did that. That sounds like we went in there and put a gun to their head and said, you got to do that. We didn't do it that way. That's how the European decided, the majority of European states decided they wanted to govern themselves. They made those choices. They had democratic votes to decide that on their own. So don't say America did this, America did that. Because it's not just America did it. Poland did it. Estonia did it. Latvia did it. Latvia did it. Lithuania did it. All these states did it.
Just like did nothing. It's bollocks.
The day Obama's elected, Russia moves nukes into the middle of fucking Europe, okay, violating a bunch of their treaties, just to see what Obama would fucking do.
Yeah.
And after all that, does Obama go crazy on them? He says, no, I want to have a reset of positive relations with Russia. And it starts working until Putin comes into power, and then he nixes the whole fucking thing.
Yeah. Why would he do that?
Because he doesn't like the West. Because he probably has ideas that because from a material perspective, he's running his country like a mafia. And from an ideological perspective, he probably thinks everything that you're saying. He doesn't agree with the whole Western liberal hegemony and thinks America sucks.
No, he thinks America are a bunch of liars.
That's it.
I mean, he literally called you an empire of lies.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's a lot of projection coming from Putin.
But it's also true.
The person who has fake elections every 4 years says that we're an empire of lies. Okay.
Yeah. No, but this is literally what he recently just said. Did you not listen to his Empire of Lies speech?
Yeah, I did. It was
I don't know if Sargon got it. He's saying, yes, I heard it. It's just hilarious to hear that from him.
It's just crazy.
No,
shit.
It wasn't crazy. It was totally rational from the Russian perspective. But you don't respect their position at all. You call him a monster. You think that they don't have any right to have any kind of influence in the surrounding countries on their borders.
Who said what the fuck is this dude take? Okay, influence isn't okay. America has a lot of influence in a lot of countries, okay? A lot of countries have a lot of influence in a lot of countries. Estonia has influence in Lithuania. Lithuania has influence in Estonia. That doesn't mean Lithuania invades Estonia. Doesn't mean Estonia invades Lithuania. You can have influence in countries and not be invading them, not be bombing them, or forcing them to accept deals. There were people in Ukraine that genuinely viewed Russia as a brotherly nation, and they have completely destroyed their image of themselves. That image is dead. If they wouldn't have acted this way since 2014, there's a decent chance they could have had a productive relationship with Ukraine. Maybe Ukraine would still be in the EU. There's a decent chance they probably would have, because that's probably the best path for Ukraine. But that doesn't mean they wouldn't have any relationship with Russia economically. It probably would be better for everyday Russians, everyday Ukrainians, and the people who like overlap on the border, have like families in Russia and families in Ukraine. It'd be better for everyone if they had influence in Ukraine positively economically, positively through trade, positively through security arrangements to deal with things like maybe like human trafficking and crime. But instead, they decided that they wanted to engage in the human trafficking and be deporting thousands upon thousands of Ukrainian children to their country, stealing them and engaging in horrific war crimes. That's what they chose to do. Man.
Which is historically unprecedented, and this is leading them to feel like caged animals.
I don't think countries have a right to march their tanks into other countries that are trying to make their own decisions about the future that they want to go. Yeah, I don't respect that. I don't respect that position.
Then America is the worst offender in this regard.
I don't like when the fucking America does that shit either. This is not a whataboutism.
But you don't think America should be destroyed?
No.
Then Russia shouldn't be destroyed.
We don't think Russia should be destroyed.
I don't think Russia or the
who's taking this
Russia or the Russian people should be killed or destroyed.
Thing to do.
You're the one framing them in this fatalistic perspective that there's no choice for them to change or to not do what they're doing, basically. I don't abide by that.
I don't think so. I think that Russia is basically locked on a course for war.
Okay, well, I don't agree with that.
Okay, well, then what's your evidence for that?
That other countries can change, that people can change. They
were literally invading fucking Ukraine.
They changed from a czar to being communism. Crimea.
Okay. They're actually in a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and they're surrounding the capital. I'm like...
I don't think there's anything else to be listening. I've been listening to this for an hour and 8 minutes. It is like 7-something a.m. over here. I went an hour over my usual streams to make up for the fact that I ran late. I'm a little drunk now because I needed it to get through it. I'm going to end stream. This was garbage, man. This was terrible. This is probably one of the worst debates I've heard on Ukraine. This is like one of the worst positions I've heard on Ukraine, unironically. This is terrible. I think Sitch did okay. But just Sargon's position is just so bizarre, man. It's just so bizarre. Oh my God. You know how I said they need to take the phone away from Jordan Peterson? He's acting like an old man. Someone needs to help Sargon, okay? You know, he's got like a lovely family. He should go be spending more time with them, okay? He should be focusing on them, okay?